just to remind you that after today, I sent to everybody who has registered for today an email with the link to where you can watch the recording of this. And you can also watch the recordings of this, all the other meetings we had in the previous months for various topics. And it's a secret folder though, so not everything is available if you just go straight to my YouTube channel. But if you follow the link on your email, you should be able to watch them all from start to finish. And it's just because in the past we wanted to keep some of them more private, there were more charts there and so on. But now bear in mind that if we look at your chart, that's going to be part of the recording as well. So if you don't want to, let me know. And I'm just not gonna show it. Yes, it's also the pages that you know about, the psychological astrology students and friends page on Facebook, if you want to join us there as well to ask questions and just discuss, keep in touch if you wish. It's not a very busy page, so if you want to help me grow it, that would be great. You can also find all the other resources on my channel and on my page. I will write you a link on the chat box later on. And now let's talk about Libra today. Is my internet connection fine? Because I can see myself a little bit delayed on the camera. Do you hear me all right? Is everything fine?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. All right.
Yes.
I don't know why it feels a little strange today, but let's start. As usual, a little bit of introduction from me in the beginning, but I won't be too long because today I changed the normal way I do it. And I just want to show you a few quotes from astrologers, from different books of astrology, quotes about Libra. And they're not ordered in any way. It's just different thoughts about the sign or the energy. So they can give us some pointers. And I thought this will be a good way to start. I liked how Lauren mixed up Virgo with Libra today, because that's my first quote. It's very interesting that you somehow, I don't know, intuited what I'm going to show you. So let me share the screen with you. And the very first one I had, they're just a couple, not a lot. Do you see my screen?
Nice.
Sorry, keep with me for a minute. Something is slow here. I'm not sure what's going on, but here we are. Okay, well, that's from one of Liz Green's books. She says, be careful. Libra is the greatest perfectionist of the zodiac, not Virgo, as you may have heard. Now, I don't know what to think about that, but I am very personally involved with this energy, I feel myself. I've got my South Node in Libra, and if you know me and if you've been to the previous discussions, you know that I consider the South Node as something really foundational for every one of us, something that we come to this life with as energy that we are kind of comfortable in, but also we tend to blunder it and to express the shadow of it as well quite a lot. But it's an easygoing energy that we all feel we can just grab and use. That's Libra for me. So even though I'm a Scorpio with lots of planets in Scorpio, I know that something Libran is really at the basis of my personality, and it's something that I have been trying to overcome as well through the South Node for many years, as it is popping out every now and then a lot, and many people tell me that I look like Libra more to them than Scorpio, which I appreciate. There is a lot of truth in it. And also that thing about the new moon before birth that we discussed some time ago, you know, how sometimes we have it in a different sign, in the previous sign, not the one that we were born in as a sun sign. And that's my case as well. So I've got a Libra foundation there as well. And I was thinking about this perfectionism thing on Libra. Really like that quote. That's from the book Astrology for Lovers. I don't know if you know that book. It sounds a bit light, but it's actually one of the best books by Liz Green that I know of. It's really, really good book. And she speaks about Libra extensively there, about the Libra man, the Libra woman. It's more concentrated on relationships, but it's got that reputation of being the relationship sign as well. But first, let's talk about the perfectionism thing. Why is it more of a perfectionist than Virgo? Uh, this is the idea of balancing that we know about with Libra, and how much it is striving to order things in a way that either feel good or are pleasure for the senses. The inner harmony corresponds with the outer harmony. And I think maybe this sign is one idea more preoccupied with making things exactly the way it imagines, according to some standard, to some ideal in its head. It's a very idealistic sign, and that idealism is at the basis of it, I think. So yeah, something to discuss. I would be interested to hear what you guys think about that comparison between Virgo and Libra. And then I've got...
Rotalina, may I interrupt you for
Yeah.
1 second? Just saying, on my screen, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 little boxes of quotes, but they're
Oh,
too
you don't
small
see...
for me to see them. Is
Same.
anybody else seeing
Same.
that?
Same.
Okay,
Same.
thanks for letting me know. I thought you were able to see the whole thing, but actually, it seems like
It's hard. I can't read. I couldn't even find which one you were talking about. So excuse me for
Okay,
interrupting you.
excuse me. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought that you were able to see my whole screen, but actually, it was a particular page you remained on. So let's try again. And it's actually this. What do you see now? Do you see one quote?
Nothing.
Black.
Nothing.
It's
Libra. Now we see Libra, the perfection of harmony in the
Yes.
outer world. No,
Be
be
careful.
careful.
So that's the one I wanted to show you.
That's the
Okay.
one.
That's the one. That's the one I was just talking about. So yeah, this is Liz Green from the book Astrology for Lovers. And I thought this quote may be interesting to begin with because of that contrast between Virgo and Libra. And also the similarity, this perfectionism. Maybe we can discuss what you guys think about it and where we can see what kind of perfectionism is the Virgo one and what kind is the Libra one. As I thought very interesting things can come from here. But she says that she thinks Libra is the bigger perfectionist. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I speak?
Of course.
Just from the astronomical point of view, where the constellations are in the sky, actually she could well be still talking about Virgo, because Virgo is where Libra is really in the sky. So actually she could still be talking about Virgo in a sidereal sense. So
Well,
it would fit both in a way. But I think where Libra differs is that Libra seems more about proportion and symmetry, and in that sense balancing things up rather than putting things into pigeonholes type of organization, which is Virgo. So I think that's the difference for me.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure Liz Green was referring to the psychological part.
She was, but I'm
Tropical.
just saying in a broader sense, what
Yes.
really she's talking about was probably Virgo in a sense, in the real sense of the word, in the, where the stars actually are in the sky. That's all I was saying. I'm just
Right.
adding my sidereal bit in there. So, yeah.
Well, I was just looking for, because this is really taken out of context in the book, but I have like the whole quote here, which hopefully if I read it to you, maybe it will make a little bit more sense what she's referring to here. So she says, love for Libra must always be in the appropriate style. A ritual of courtly love, complete with the right gestures, the right words, the right perfume, the right satin sheets, the right scented candles, the right flowers. Be careful, Libra is the great perfectionist of the zodiac, not Virgo, and so on. So here we're talking about trying to make things exactly like Libra imagines them to be. So that's the kind of perfectionism as a tendency, as a temperamental tendency more than anything else. But yeah, I see what you're saying, Paula, and they actually, these two signs, they really blend into each other, don't they? We know that in the past Libra didn't exist. It was not part of the zodiac. And back in times when people were more using the sidereal system, really, and not that much the tropical. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's the constellation sidereal. Tropical zodiac is more imaginary, and it's to do more with the orbit of the Earth and how we see the different sectors of the sky throughout the year. But if we look at the sky as constellations of stars, then Libra in the past was somewhere like between Virgo and Scorpio, but it wasn't displayed, it wasn't talked about or shown at all. So that may be interesting.
Well, I think when you say it, if you want someone to comment, I think that in balance, like you said, in balancing and getting things just right, there is a perfectionist tendency versus in Virgo, perhaps so detailed and getting the details in order versus the big picture.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sorry. I say, could it be that Libra's an air sign and so it's more in the mind, and Virgo's Earth and much more practical of doing it as opposed to thinking it?
Yes, very good
That's
distinction.
very good.
Yeah, that's Liz's point actually.
And also, Libra is more about being a perfectionist in terms of relationships, of how people perceive me and how I perceive the relationship in terms of others more, while Virgo is in terms of being in service to others in a way, which is a different nuance, so to say. Virgo is more practical, it's more to a problem solver, while Libra will be more a perfectionist in terms of how I behave, how others see me. Everybody should like me in this way.
Maybe Libra is a cultural expectation or something more social than Virgo.
Absolutely.
Because you expect perfection from society, but in Virgo you are still looking at yourself.
Absolutely. Well, I really love what you say. Are you reading?
Besides Saturn gets exalted. How do you say it there in Libra?
Yes,
Saturn,
exactly. It's got it
perfection,
exalted in Libra. Yes, Saturn is exalted in Libra. Right.
Also, can I say that I suspect, this is my own view, that Virgo is also ruled by Venus. I think Virgo is ruled by Mercury and Venus. And I know that's not the traditional outlook, but that's what I suspect.
Were you with us when we spoke about Virgo?
No, I don't know if I was on that one.
Well, you may
see all of it, but yeah.
You may be surprised to discover that we were actually on your same track, because when we spoke about Virgo, I included some of the asteroids and the asteroid goddesses that are connected to Virgo, Ceres and Vesta. And you know how those feminine archetypes of the asteroids, they are a mixture between several signs, usually Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. So this is another way to say that yes, there is something Libran in Virgo and the other way around, but maybe when we split them down into the more particular feminine archetypes that we can see purely in the signs, but when we look at things like the asteroids, for example. And at the time I was saying, if we try to connect Vesta and Ceres mostly with Virgo, then there is a big truth in Athena and Juno being connected to Libra, because they are different archetypes of the feminine that are more close to the Libra side of the expression of, let's say, not just femininity, but relationship in general. Yeah.
No, I still think Virgo has a rulership of actual Venus as well. I'm sorry, but I just have to.
You're right, because Venus.
I think she rules 3 signs, and one of them is Virgo.
It would be it would be very interesting to have a talk one day on what ruling really means.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I was just about to say that.
Okay, next week.
Great topic. Yeah, okay. Well, we don't normally decide on the topic so early, but why don't we? No, that's a great topic. That's a great topic.
It is a good topic.
And we can speculate.
I've always kind of observed in my interactions with, I have a lot of interactions with Libra and Virgo in my family. And I've always noticed this difference. I have noticed the similarity on like focus on being the best and perfectionist in everything. I have noticed that similarity, but the variation is that in Virgo, you see this energy in relation to others, as in they're always focused on how it would appear to others, as opposed to what I've seen mostly in Libra is really internal. Like if you see that picture of Venus, that picture with the hair, the curly hair, and it's really very I don't want to say self-involved, but it's more self-centered. It's more like finding the beauty within, making yourself beautiful for yourself. As opposed to Virgo, I've always seen it's like pleasing others. It's about how it would look to others. I don't know if I'm making sense.
You are, Shinja. You are very much. Yes, it's a different kind of. I really liked what you, Fabiana, said earlier about the distinction between earth and air. That's a big thing, isn't it? Because Virgo, and also Tsveti mentioned this, that Virgo needs to have a purpose of what it's making better with its perfectionism. It needs to repair something. It's a crisis sign, which always tries to either discriminate the good from the bad and get to a point where we know we're one step ahead. While Libra is more future oriented. It's more about an idea. It's very idealistic because it's air, isn't it? And then this ideal becomes the basis of its perfectionism. There is another quote here, this time from Stephen Forrest, about the same thing. Here he says, the perception of harmony in the outer world translates into calm in the inner world.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that one? That's from the inner sky.
Yeah. I think that goes for Virgo as well, though, because they just love to organize their environment so that they feel like they've tidied their mind up. I mean, we all do that. When you tidy up, you feel better, don't you? Because it's the external expression of what you need to do internally, but it still has the same effect as if you'd just tidied your mind up.
That's right. And maybe when you do that as a Virgo, then you have a good starting point for new action, for new productivity after you've tidied up. But when you do it as a Libra, you are inspired on top of everything else. You have calmed your nerves down. There is this calming down that Stephen Forrest talks about a lot about Libra, that I think nobody else really is mentioning that aspect of it, of like making, this is very Venusian, like slowing down. If Mars is speeding up, then Venus is kind of slowing down and giving us more of a rest and of calm feeling. I've noticed that when we tidy up as a Libra, then we can also put a stamp on the environment based on our own style. Yeah, so it's kind of making everything to the liking of what we are. So this is the harmony outside translates into harmony inside, but the other way around as well. So whatever we have inside, we can then stamp the environment by transforming it with our, let's say, art or just the way we order things or combine them, things like that. What else comes to mind about this?
I think it's the need for beauty as well, isn't it? To see beauty and symmetry and everything, and to get the buzz from that is inspirational, or that makes us feel calm. You know, in that sense, I think beauty is like a huge thing for Libra. You know, that things have to be beautiful, and that sort of it could be the golden mean, Fibonacci type the sequence. You know, that kind of symmetry, that there is an inherent beauty in things, and Libra is somehow able to tap into that and bring that out through their sense of proportion, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, so I have a Moon, Venus, and Mercury in Libra, so I relate quite a lot with the sign, and beauty makes me think that precisely, I've always thought that beauty was the greatest injustice in the world.
Why? Tell us more about that.
Because you can you can compensate with charm, but your physical beauty, the beauty of your appearance, there are people who are naturally very beautiful, and everyone looks at them and are enchanted by their beauty. And there are people who are ugly and not very good to look at and not attractive because of that. And it looks really unfair, which is also a problem for Libra.
Mm.
I was going to add that for me, Libra, it adds the idea of the scales and justice. And
Lauren, we're gonna get there. Hold on with this one for the moment because
okay, sorry.
No, that's great. But just to say that it's coming on one of the next slides because this is like another totally different aspect of it that we can also speak about. But just if we can hold on to the beauty harmony thing for a second here, and then I'll switch on to.
I think beauty, art, and art are definitely key words for Libra.
And also the last line that it says calm in the inner world, you actually feel that when you sit with a person who is a Libra. I don't know, I've always felt it. It's like sitting near water, you know, how it kind of transcends the chaos that's around us or in our mind. You sit with a person who is a Libra and you can feel that sense of calm. It's really like water. It's very peaceful energy, and it's like very content in in itself. That's how I've always felt it. You know, as like when you sit near the lake, you look at it and you look how peaceful that water is. I mean, you don't even have to get in the water to feel that peace. You just feel how beautiful that water is, just being water. And you feel that sense of calm just transcend over your chaotic thoughts. I have had that experience of being with the Libra.
That's so interesting, Shinji, because they don't have the reputation of the most calm. Actually, this is one of the big paradoxes about Libra being a cardinal sign, like Aries, Capricorn, and Cancer. It's actually has this agitation about it. It's one of the restless signs. I've got that on one of the next slides, and I'll explain myself why. But there is this thing that they are supposed to do that. It's like a how can I say, it's a goal if you have a Libra sun, because it may be many different situations, but if you have a Libra sun, then you need to bring that over somehow to the world. But you're not necessarily feeling inside like this. You're constantly in the desire to calm yourself down, and maybe that's why you are doing all this, because you want to quench that agitation that's inside you. That's very comparable to Aryan one. They're two sides of the same coin, but they're very maybe more similar than different in that way. But it's very interesting. Is it possible that maybe the Libras you knew were very mixed up with other water tendencies, like
I guess so.
Scorpio is here, so there may have been well, even though Scorpio is not very calm as well, but I just wonder where this is coming from, because that doesn't correspond to my impression of Libras. What do you guys think?
I think it's more Piscean.
This quote somehow reminds me of The Little Prince, and it leads me to this in the book about saying that the beauty of things is in the eye of the beholder, one, and the other is that the real beauty of things is not in the way they really look. And if you have eyes to see the beauty, you will find it. And it somehow reminds me of this diplomacy and this delicacy that the Libra sign has within. And they usually, because they're a cardinal sign, somehow I feel that if they're somehow not keeping it only on the superficial level of seeing beautiful things and finding harmony to surround them in the material world, and so that to feel harmonious on the inside, but rather also seek the harmony on the inside, so they project it on the outside. It's somehow related, both their inner world and the harmony they seek on the outside. It's really very much related. That's why they are so diplomatic, and they're so much for relationships and being like on the other side of Aries, not so, you know, being aggressive or I mean, I don't know if you understand what I mean, but I mean that what we see on the outside is actually a projection of our inner world. And for Libra, this harmony they project on the outside and they seek for it on the outside is actually what they want to find in the inside. And once they find it, they start seeing beauty in all. They don't categorize so much the things that surround them by this is ugly, this is beautiful, and they don't necessarily need to see certain proportions. That's what I mean. That once they become open to their inner world, they somehow start seeing it on the outside.
Yeah.
And this is how they bring it to the world, in a way.
That's right. Yes, Paula, she wanted to come.
Yeah, it's going back to the watery aspect of Libra. I think that it does have a watery aspect because, and I'm going back to rulerships again, I think that it has a dual rulership as well. One of them is Venus and the other one is Neptune. Sorry, but there is a Neptunian aspect to them. It might be just an esoteric level, but it's definitely there. And I think that this is where the ideal of beauty also comes from this Neptunian affinity or this rulership, co-rulership. And that's where the romance comes in for Libra as well, which can be very, very personal, or it can be very, very spiritual as well. Like say on a wider level or an activism level. I also think Pallas Athena as well has something to do with Libra, but that's another thing.
Yeah, very direct.
But like on the watery aspect, I think there is Neptune's in there as well as the higher love of Venus.
Have you read the article on Neptune as the higher octave of Venus?
Yeah, but I think actually that's in the sign of Libra as well. That's found in the sign as well. There is that watery calm, which is sort of the Neptunian aspect as well, and sensitivity. It may not be expressed the same way as Pisceans, not in such a sort of nebulous or sort of diffuse way, but it's definitely there, I think.
Right.
But there again, I'm just being a rebel again with my rulerships, because I think a different way with that. So, and I also follow the sidereal as well. So, but it does apply, I think.
Yes, it makes sense from that angle as well, but we can see some tendencies and they can come from different explanations, can they?
Sure.
For example, this idealism of all the air signs, they are having these images in their head about rational images. Liz Green is claiming that Libra, together with the other two air signs, is actually not very emotional. And I'm sure you would agree with that if we think about it. That's not meant to be an emotional energy. It's a rational energy. It connects like everything with air connects. It is building bridges and things like that. But it's not preoccupied with feelings. She says that all the air signs are children emotionally. They are very, very immature emotionally. And that's one of the things that drives others crazy around them. If you have Moon in Libra, for example, or something like this, and you are in a relationship, you maybe, yeah, I know, Jean-Marc, you are such a good example. I wanted to go back to you because you are very interesting. 0 degrees Libra is your Moon, the very first degree of Libra. And I find this very, very interesting because it's the autumn equinox degree. And if you look at the Sabian symbol as well, I think it was something to do with a butterfly with one wing formed better than the other. Correct me, Dwayne, if I'm mistaken here. But
the pink butterfly.
Yeah, it was something about the butterfly that one side of it is perfect, the other side is not that perfect. And it's a great, maybe I should have started from this before I started with all those scattered quotes, so that we have a bit of an idea, where is Libra in the zodiac? Why? I mean, not just that it's cardinal and air, but that it follows Virgo, it's before Scorpio, Scorpio. But what we didn't mention, and maybe is at the basis of not getting very confused, is that it's the autumn equinox. We just had it 2 days ago, where days and nights are equal, but there is a point of tension, like with the spring one, because these are transitional signs. They're not like midsummer and midwinter, where something is really strong, either the day or the night, either the extroversion or the introversion, and we have this stability about the other two cardinal signs. Well, Aries and Libra are transitional. They come from a world that they're trying to leave behind and enter into a new world, and that's to do with their hesitancy. So Libra is very hesitant in its social life, in its social participation, and its ability to be with other people and to please other people, cooperate with them. That's why it's so anxious about doing it. And that's why it's got this reputation of constantly trying to do that. But very often it overdoes it. It doesn't do it very well. It's got this social complex a little bit, very similar to how Aries is a little bit awkward into getting out of the sea of the whole and coming into individuality. So and is a little bit, not very sure in its individuality. So it's just the first step towards building it. Libra is just the first step toward building social participation. So that's why the paradox about it, that it is doing this really very actively, but it's not necessarily an expert yet in that. Yeah, do you agree with me?
I think that I have a moon in Libra, and the need for calm, for interior calm, perhaps doesn't let you decide. You cannot decide sometimes because you see that everything is so beautiful, so calm, but you know that it is not correct, that there is something that doesn't fit, and you don't want to decide because you know that will break that beauty, let's say.
So you mean that if you make a decision, you already limit things and they cannot get any better from there, and it's never good enough kind of feeling. So that's why you don't make the decision. Is that?
Yes, because you see the whole picture, everything is so beautiful, and sometimes you have to decide. And as it is a cardinal sign, and you see Aries in front of you, there is a time that you have to decide, and you know that something will be broken, and you will start another cycle. But well, you want beauty, everything perfect. Nobody talks about you, your decision. You have broken something and you don't want to. And
so you're saying you don't want to be put on the spot, because that would be like...
That's why Libra, well, my moon in Libra sometimes puts me in the same place. I cannot decide. You're always doubting. Well, because you have to choose a way and leave the other behind, and someone will be angry.
Right, I'm skipping down to another quote, which is to do with what you're just talking about, Fabiana, which is Stephen Forrest again. Let me see, yeah. So we cannot keep our options open forever, he says, but Libra may try, and in that attempt, it meets its shadow. So I had left this to the end because I thought we should speak about the shadow maybe second, but now this is relevant to what you're saying.
Shadow.
Where do you think this whole thing is coming from, about the indecisiveness?
I was thinking about that. My father had his son in Libra, and he was so wise. He was a particle physicist, very nerd-like and everything. But when I'd come to him to help me make a decision, he just wouldn't help me ever. He just would maybe state this side, that side, but he said he's not smart enough to know, even though he was the smartest person I ever knew. But he never would help me with any decisions because he just felt there's too many factors and he couldn't make those decisions.
Always want to see both sides of the story. That's such a big hindrance. I mean, I suffer from that a lot with the South Node in Libra, and it's very interesting. I don't remember who exactly was mentioning that. I think it was Stephen Arroyo, that when you give Libra one argument, say let's say, for example, it's something political, where there are two opposing parties, and you meet and the other person speaks about one of them and tries to convince you in their principles, in their logic, in their policies, and whatever. The Libra person will immediately start talking about the other, not because they believe in the other or they're supporters of the other, but just so that they can find the middle ground, because they're more interested in the middle ground, in the harmony between
the synthesis.
Sorry, Jean-Marc?
The synthesis.
Not just the synthesis, but also peace and harmony and kind of agreement is more important. It's more important for me to let you see the other side of the story. Like now, for example, I'm anxious. Are we going to be able to cover all sides of Libra? And this is obviously impossible. That's one of the downsides of this energy, that I want to see it from all sorts of different angles. And if I miss one of those angles, I feel like I have betrayed you know, let's say the discussion at the moment, and that's not good, not always good, because we may be able to focus on just a couple of things, but go really deeply in them and discover something important. Maybe a new truth will come out from it, and we don't necessarily have to tick all the boxes, but that's a natural tendency of Libra to want to see it all from all sides, and will offer you. It will sometimes feel like it's argumentative, that is arguing with you. Well, actually, it's not arguing with you or with your viewpoints. It's arguing with the thing itself, with the topic itself, so that it can reach a more comprehensive view of the whole picture. And maybe make a decision from there. But when there are other people, it's difficult.
Okay. On one hand, Libra is diplomatic, and on the other hand, devil's advocate.
Yes, exactly.
And
half. When you're holding a balance in your hand, and when you're focused so much on figuring out that you have considered each and every option, that you're really focused on what is going down and what is going up, and you're not really making your mind. You're not really solidifying that thought process where you stand out of the two options, that you're like, which one do you resonate more? You're not really thinking about that as a Libra. I think your focus is more on how, like, just as one side is going down, you're thinking of the other side, and when the other side is going down, you're thinking of the first side. So it's like you're always thinking of the other option, or like all the options that are on the table, and not really focusing on what you're resonating with the more. Where do you stand out of these four options? Which one do you resonate more? That's how I think the rest of the signs think. But Libra is always focused on giving equal amount of time to all the options. And thereby losing that focus on where do they stand out of the four options.
Yeah, but when you think that Margaret Thatcher was a Libra,
she had a very strong Mars in the first house, as far as I remember.
And Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez is a Libra, and they most probably have other elements, but you've got some very strongly opinionated Libra as well.
Okay, this is a great time. I'm sorry to interject again, but this is a great time to tell you something that I was trying to leave for later. But Stephen, I know that you wanted to say something. I'll give you a chance in a second, but I will forget this. So maybe in Liz Green's book, she's talking about the myth of Tiresias. I'm not sure if that's really the way it's pronounced. Do you remember that, Jean-Marc? I think you were reading that book lately.
The blind guy?
Blind prophet.
The blind prophet is the one who saw Hera naked?
That's one version, but it's something slightly different. Basically, I won't go through the whole thing, but it's to do with the Libran. Why is it that, this may give us an explanation, it's very interesting, I find. Why is it that a lot of Libra men display very typical, well, I wouldn't say feminine, but it's like appreciation of femininity, appreciation of the other, so the feminine even the feminine sex, let's say, they're more connecting with women friends, let's say, or they are refined as a personality. It's very typical. While with women in Libra, Libra Sun women, we have the opposite. We very often have a very combative personality and temperament, and very Martian looking, like Margaret Thatcher or Theresa May, or I was sharing with Jean-Marc some time ago that my mother is a copy of Margaret Thatcher. They were born on the same date, 30 years difference, and she really looks like her and behaves like her, and it's really funny because it's a very Libran chart as well, but it's just another example which has been in front of me all my life of how Aries looking a Libra woman could be, even if she's got everything in Libra pretty much in her chart. And this myth of that story of the blind prophet may have to do with this, of how this is one of the signs, together with Pisces and Gemini, that are also dualistic, that has this tendency to flip to the other side. So it's nothing sexual going on here. I mean, it's not a confusion about sexuality, but it is translating into being able to connect more with the opposite sex than with your own. There is this, I don't know if you would agree, with Libra quite a lot. And women very often become Athena, which is more like a rational woman, the woman that uses the intellect, which is typically more of a male function. And then the other side of Libra, the harmony, the balance, the beauty, is somehow adopted by male people that have Libra a lot. So the myth was, so this blind prophet was asked, do you want to tell it yourself, Jean-Marc, if you remember it, or do you want me to?
Yes,
I'm not a very good storyteller.
Is it a story when he had to answer the question who gets the more pleasure making love?
Yes.
And
because he lives 6 months or 6 years as or seven years like as male, and 7 years as a woman. So he knows what the two sexes feel. So Hera, do you call it Hera?
Hera, Hera, the goddess Hera basically gave this I don't know, he wasn't a god, but the prophet, he gave him, before he became a prophet and before he was blind, it was how she gave him the chance to be a woman for 7 years and experience both sexes. And then he was meant to come back to Hera and Zeus and give his opinion. So that's very Libra.
Argument.
Assessment, and say the question was, which one has more pleasure, the male or the female? And he said the female. So that was supposed to be the truth. And Zeus became very angry of that answer. That's at least the version Liz Green is telling, even though today I read another one that Hera wasn't very happy with this answer, but never mind, you know how strange mythology is. But the question is that now that he gave this answer, he was blinded by Zeus and given the ability to be a prophet because of what he said, you know, of what he assessed. And here this is the duality of Libra, of not really knowing where it stands, on which side of the fence it stands, really, sometimes.
So in other words, sorry, I was just going to say, in other words, what he's saying is that this prophet was blinded by the appearance of things, and by taking away his sight, he then had inner sight to see the inner beauty of things and judge it that way. Because like with Libra, you get this focus on the head and this intellectual judgment where to be truly impartial, then everything has validity, every view is valid. So how can you make your mind up? The only way to make your mind up is through going within to the emotional aspect of value judgment, which is Venus, I suppose. But yeah, I think that's what the myth means to me as well. It's taking away the value judgment through the eyes and the external reality and going to the inner reality as the best form of judgment.
Yeah, possibly, but can we see how through the different elements we have different standards of what's like what you said previously, that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, of course. And I was going to go back to Jean-Marc's observation of how unjust it is that some people are more beautiful than others. But this isn't this just one of the many qualities, the external balance of features, let's say physical features, that there is some sort of a common standard there, and Libra is observing that standard, of course, because something out there in the world, this is just my way of thinking, has to give an example of this as well. You know, other energies give example of great compassion, a great caretaking, or very developed knowledge, or something else, all other qualities. But there needs to be an energy out there to set the standards of external beauty. Why? Maybe because we all, regardless of how beautiful we are naturally by birth, by genetics, let's say, we need to incorporate Libra somewhere in the outer world by trying to make beautiful forms, or to create harmony, or create aesthetic pleasure. So here we can see another quote, for example, of Libra is ruled by the planet Venus and produces beautiful features and great charm. It is a symbol of culture and aesthetic refinement. It is seen at work wherever the factor of form operates as a means of bringing scattered elements into cohesive patterns of order and beauty. So would we be motivated to do that, to bring scattered elements together and form something beautiful, if we don't have certain examples out there in the world of people that are beautiful, let's say, that can give us just the idea of this in a similar way how we see different colors in nature, and then we can make our own artificial colors for clothing, for textures, for paint, all sorts of things like this, mimicking what we have seen out there. What do you think about this? Is it really a privilege, or is it just one of the many things out there to be beautiful in that way?
This might be missing the point, but I think of my father loved math and physics because it took all the scattered elements, and then he'd make these formulas and everything, and there'd be this pattern of order and beauty, like, and also think of, the sunflower seeds, all the sacred geometry, things like that, where everything seems all without order, and then you can bring it all together and you see a repetitive, cohesive pattern of order and beauty.
Exactly. It's very much to the point, Lauren, and it's also to do with that first thing that we said about the perfectionism of Libra, isn't it? That's exactly the kind of perfectionism it's looking for a form which is balanced. So before, like with Virgo, something was already broken or not perfect. So the reason why it's doing something is to make it perfect again, or to repair it in a way. While Libra is working with what's out there, but it's just separated, scattered, as it says here. And it makes creatively, through its intellect, through its imagination, through its value judgment, it makes it work as a new form. And then this form can become an example for something else, or for somebody else to move forward.
And also I would add the emphasis through the intellect.
Exactly. Because it's looking to build a social standard. We're going back to this Libra being the first social sign. So it is starting to build forms, and these forms can be also ways of living together, ways of agreeing, how to live together as society, even though we're all very different. And it's not very adept in this yet. Later on, Sagittarius and Capricorn will really be. But this is setting the stage. This is the first step with Libra of how to build forms which we can all utilize after that. Stephen, what do you think about all this? Or maybe about something before that we discussed and missed
it all kind of overlaps. I was wanting to make the point though about the Libra again being on the cardinal cross is very significant, because it's not a mutable cross like Virgo, it's cardinal.
Absolutely.
And in that particular regard, it fulfills the sharing of an air sign quality, but the axes of all the cardinals have each of the elements. And so Libra is pivotal in that particular regard, which diminishes the whole idea of the relevance of the sidereal zodiac because of the equinox. The Libra actually represents the harmony of the planetary cycle being balanced. And then that's supposed to reflect within us. So in that particular regard, I say, well, a Libra this, Libra that, so many options, I can't make a decision. You say, well, okay, now it comes to the sense of the mindfulness of the individual as a participant, which relates directly to spiritual maturity. And we all know the metaphor, the analogy of the donkey who starves because they can't make the decision of which piles of hay to eat. Now, the whole idea of this Libra options has to do with the dialectical exchange, which is initiated in Gemini in the first place. But this dialectical exchange is part of what's also related in Libra in terms of contracts. So in that particular regard, contract of marriage, relationships between people, contracts being written, this is the Virgo wordsmithy, but also relates to lawyers. And this idea of the dialectical exchange coming to eventually to an agreement based upon, let's say, that intellectual incorporation based upon the air quality within itself. But in terms of, again, let's say levels of how a person is working, this begs the question of esoteric astrology. And the underlying characteristic of what's the esoteric ruler of Libra is Uranus, not Venus. Now, getting back to what
Venus Urania. There is Venus Urania.
Is reflected in the works of Alan Oken and Alice Bailey in terms of the esoteric rulership of the sign of Libra. But Radina, what you were referring back to with this idea of the god and the rhetorical question of who gets the most sex, men or women, well, this gets back again to the esoteric principles, because Venus is considered a sacred planet and Mars is not considered a sacred planet. And those of you that follow the cosmology of things, this idea of Velikovsky stating that Venus really entered our solar system as a comet and not as a planet. That's why it's so hot right now, because it doesn't fit planetary formations. But this was always, thousands of years ago. The point being, and again, a compliment to the women, I say there's some physiological research why women do have a greater sexual pleasure than men, and that is the intrinsicness of the multi-orgasmic capacity of women. Men don't.
That's another point altogether, isn't it? This
well,
is
but it relates to the idea of this Aries superimposition upon Libra. Mm-hmm. We want to suppress the female energy, which is Venus, and say, no, it's the Venus which transforms the Aries. And this is why then there's more of the intrinsic ascendancy of the Venus quality on the descendant versus the Martian quality on the ascendant. However, each of us as individuals, because now we can look at the Jungian perspective, and so yes, each of us contain an anima-animus polarity. And if we look at the neurophysiology of our own embryology, we can see that penises, clitorises, ovaries, and testicles all come from the same dramatic source. So in that particular regard, people say, well, I don't even know who I am. Am I a boy? Am I a girl? Which am I? I said, well, what's the car that you're driving? And so now what we see in terms of, let's say, the transgender movement is this idea of like a deeper question about who I actually am. But this, who's the I doing the questioning has to do with the empirical self. And the only way that the empirical self can be transcended is when an individual allows themselves to be deeper immersed into the more esoteric underpinnings of the sign itself, rather than the mundane expressions of all the individual manifestations. So that was
for some people, that's very well said. For some people, it's probably easier to start backwards, to start with the expression of things outside in the world, which are easier to see, and then ask the question, but why is this the way it is? Well, what's going on? And then how they can be eventually led to the more philosophical, spiritual, or those realms that you appear to have discovered a lot more than me in particular, for example. But with other cases, it's the opposite. We're trying to find the explanation first, the bigger philosophical explanation, and then we try to see where it displays itself out in the world. But all very interesting, Stephen. Any more comments?
I just ask Stephen a question? Did I hear you correctly that you said Uranus is the ruler of Venus, of Libra?
The esoteric ruler.
Esoteric. And what, how do you, what would you mean by that? Could you define that for me?
That's the difference between insight and intuition. So we have different frequencies of how information is relayed. And insight has to do with mere intellectualism of the mental plane consciousness, whereas intuition has to do with the nirvanic plane of consciousness that is non-dual. And in that particular regard, that collapses the walls of this of all these options that Libra's presented. It then becomes non-dual. Everything becomes exclusive while everything is separate. And then following from the standard Buddhistic tradition of the four immeasurables, it's going to be love, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity. And this is the key quality within Libra of experiencing equanimity from the inside out, as the outside reflects the total harmony of nature. Now, again, it takes a bit of spiritual maturity for an individual to have a sense of a balanced sense of equanimity. Why? Because the human animal always has biases. Whether it's going to be language, whether it's going to be culture, whether it's going to be music, whether it's going to be food, there's always going to be biases. Well, what I want to eat today? Well, I don't know. There's so much, I guess I won't eat today at all. And now we get back to the donkey consciousness of, let's say, living in the simian world in merely a mundane expression of what these constellar signs are supposed to suggest to our own personal development.
Okay. I think, so the esoteric then would be the inner. Were you trying
soul
to say
growth. Difference between personality growth and soul growth?
Soul growth.
Now, everyone's like to say, "Oh, I have a soul. I have a soul," but no one can really define it. But it's a hierarchical of this material, of the dense body, to the etheric, to the spiritual, to again a higher point beyond the spirit. Because most people say, well, yes, spirit transcends soul, soul transcends personality, but we want to integrate personality and soul so at least we can get to spirit. And that getting from soul to spirit is part of this esoteric ascendancy, which has to do with the spiritual path. And not just being able to find a good job or a nice relationship or where should I move, and all these kind of mundane decisions, which are really just distractions. But they keep the mind busy. So a person doesn't have to think about these other things.
So this building of a strategy for your own life is something very Libran. Venus is Libra, isn't it? The value system that needs to advise the sun on what's the best way to get to where the sun is going.
Which makes a very good point why Venus rules Taurus, because Taurus has to do with the initiation of a value system.
Is it not the value system more related to Libra and not that much to Taurus?
Well, the idea of, let's say, values is money, but money represents a medium of exchange. So
no, not that kind of value system. Not the value system in terms of, I'm not referring to the Taurian kind of what is more valuable for me as a, compared to another, monetarily or in other way. But it's the value system of what I imagine or what I... well, imagination is probably not the best word, but what I conceive as a thought, as an ideal, which is air quality in Libra, for my life and for my general whole picture of path, the spiritual path that you were talking about, I guess. So is that not conceived by Libra as a strategy?
I would agree with that very much so, but then Libra is followed by Scorpio. So just because a person assumes and ascribes an ideal, the ideal has to be tested. And this is, again, where it gets back down to the levels of the personality that would be considered a little underdeveloped. Because why? Our spirit inhabits a hominid body, which is in itself not perfect. So the ideal is always going to miss the mark, but it represents an approximation of where the person wants to put the goal of their life. Now, if a person is misdirected, much like having the misaligned spark plugs on the car, you'll get along on the road, but you ain't going to have an efficient engine.
Yeah, but this is just the first point of initiation with Libra. We're starting on a journey. So yes, the ideal is not perfect, but then that's why we have Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, and so on, so that we can walk the path.
Then move to the next cardinal sign, which would be Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It seems to me obvious that Libra is about value, because the scales are used to measure value.
Exactly. That's my next question. Do you want to comment on that, Jean-Marc, about what you think the scales are really? What's the meaning of the scales? Because here we have something by Roger, which is like saying it's not this, but it's that. But you tell first, how do you see it?
I see it as listening to the discussion. We have plenty of experiences and things we have seen about Libra or any sign, but what is really the scale? It's so simple that precisely it's difficult to stay there. But there is one side, there is the other side, there is the thing in between. These two sides are connected, and it moves according to what are on each side. And basically that's all.
So you think it's more to do with balance?
In any situation in life, from physics to from physics to psychology to social life to art, if you have one side, another side, and a connection between the two, a rapport between the two, that's Libra.
So reconciling differences and finding a middle ground is the meaning of the scale. So the scale is trying to have people.
Not always finding a middle ground, because sometimes it's sometimes one side weighs more than the other.
Okay.
Or it's not necessarily finding a middle ground. You know, before you had scales, you on one side you put flour, on the other side you put weight, and then you know how to measure. It's not a middle ground, it's a measure. And
exactly.
You know, I have for 20 pounds of flour here.
Exactly. Well, so you came to the point exactly which I was trying to make. I don't know if I'll manage, but this is Dan Rogers' idea, that he says, when we look at the scales as the symbol of Libra, what do they actually mean? And how many people think that it means balance, but actually it means evaluation. And you said it. You said exactly that, I believe. Now, what we're trying to do is, and here this quote is about that, is that when we weigh the two things on the two sides of the scales, we're weighing them against some sort of standard that already exists. So, for example, 1 kilogram, let's say, or 200 grams, or whatever. So the mass of things is just like a metaphor of how we have a standard in our head. So Libra has a social standard of how much, let's say, 1 kilogram of gold is supposed to weigh. And then when it puts something in the scale, that something turns out to be either responding well to the standards, so it's meeting the standard or not meeting the standard. So what Libra is trying to evaluate all the time with all those decision-making processes and evaluations and questions and answers is whether something is worth it or not, whether something is valuable or not, and how much exactly is valuable compared to another, but mostly compared to the social standard. And Libra is not inventing that standard, it's already there, and it's just trying to oversee it. And maybe that's why we've got the law here so much, and so many lawyers are.
Yeah, it can be social, but it can be, Osiris putting with a scale, and on one side there is a feather, and on the other side there is a soul. And if the soul is heavier than the feather, it goes to suffer a little bit. And if it's lighter than the feather, it's fine.
But and I heard it, that same story as the heart on one side.
Yeah.
And the feather on the other.
Yeah, or the heart, maybe.
I like the idea, because when I had an objection to the idea of value, what is more valuable. I like the idea of just being able to have the scales as for evaluation, and that the priorities of the person are going to decide. You can just see something, but then, maybe you're looking for one thing or another. So when you measure it, you're not necessarily going for equal or balance, but you're going for what is.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly the same point, isn't it, Lauren? Like we see here, like let's have a look, because I think we are saying the same thing, and
Oh yes, I'm just saying it in a different way.
and that's a very good way to say it, I think, because that's really more of a rational process, air process with this side of Libra, no, with this side of Venus, not the Taurus side, but the the Libra side, where it's essentially a person who evaluates things. It says here, people, events, by referring them to fixed social standards, either traditional or ideal. So it may be something, not only something out there, as I just said, but something that Libra is imagining as an ideal. It's what you said, Lauren, like what you want to find by your evaluation yourself. Yeah.
I have a few scales in my house that I've bought, and I'm looking at one right now, and one has on one side Sarasvati, the music goddess, and the other side of the scale that's weighted, they're two little statues. The other side is a Hawaiian dancer. So, I mean, meaning you can measure anything. How are you going to evaluate those two? The goddess of music and art and science that way, and then the other side, the Hawaiian dancer, giving pleasure and fun through dancing.
Yeah. Is it not also that because we have spent so much time between Aries and Virgo to find ourselves, to develop ourselves, to go through trials and tribulations and things like that, but just on our own kind of thing, this was the individualistic signs. Now with Libra, we are there to compare one another's ideas, to exchange, to kind of bounce them back. And this tendency of Libra of constantly bouncing back the ball, it feels really uncomfortable when there is nothing outside, the other side to play the game with. And because that's what allows the evaluation. How are you going to evaluate if you don't have another there to compare with, or to see what it offers as an alternative to what you are having to offer? But what you would have to offer is determined by what happened in Virgo. So if you did your homework in Virgo, and you learned the lessons and you prepared yourself, it's a preparation, then when it really gets interesting, when we get to Libra, isn't it? I think there was something about this in one of those quotes of how people-centered, and that has been one of my greatest issues with this sign, of how Libra's willingness to lose one's identity in others. This is do you know Grant Levy, this author? He was a bit further back in time, in the 30s. This is a great book, Astrology for the Millions. And he says Libra's willingness to lose one's identity in others, in society, in marriage, makes Librans ideal companions or mates, but only for those who understand the curious need they have for independence that accompanies their selflessness. So that's like Libra Aries a little bit, again. But the losing oneself in others. Do you find that happening?
Yeah, I think that's the Neptunian aspect. Sorry.
Is it just the Neptunian aspect? Because Neptune and Pisces are more already playing a much more global game kind of thing. They're already allowing everybody and everything, the world. Well, with Libra, it's one-to-one. We shouldn't forget that Libra is about one-to-one relationships.
That's right.
Be it business or personal. And it's necessary to have really one side, another side. It's not ready yet to lose itself in the sea of relationship, which is more Neptunian. That's why we may be necessary to grow towards, from Libra. It's a journey from Libra to Pisces. But with Libra, we are in the beginning of that journey. So it's still just one-to-one.
But I still think it does lose itself in relationships.
But why? There is a different reason.
Is a Neptunian kind of thing as well.
I've never.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to stick with that. But I agree. I agree with you. But I just think that it comes from a different place. It comes from need to lose oneself in another.
The losing of oneself here is a little different. It's not a total losing. It's okay. There is another quote here which may explain what I mean, because Libra hasn't really lost itself yet in others. It's just a willingness to, but it's not yet really, it hasn't done it. It's hesitating to do it. So, okay, this one is a little bit, it's not exactly the one I was looking for, but Libra is the will of the particular to become one in consciousness with the activity of the universal. So it's like Libra is still very much an individualist. Libra is still just coming from the underside of the zodiac. And it's only making the first step of participating in the big picture. But, and yeah, in that sense, I agree with you.
I think it channels it. I think that the Librans have this spiritual awareness that they can bring into a personal dimension. And so in that sense, that's the way that Neptune works. It sometimes can work in a way in which they lose themselves as well. But usually it's just that they see that the plan, the universal sort of patterns and things. Like somebody mentioned the sacred geometry.
Yeah.
So they can sense or see that as a beautiful picture, and they need to sort of translate that into a personal dimension or in a personal way.
Yes,
through
but
their relations with others or through their offerings of art or whatever.
Could
just
be.
that's how I see it.
Yeah, it's just the idealism of Neptune is a different kind of idealism from that of it's a watery kind of merging, really merging and mixing, where we really lose ourselves literally with Neptune. Well, here Libra is not really willing to mix and merge. It just wants to exchange. It wants to exchange as a separate being with another separate being. It still hasn't gone through the initiation of Scorpio, where its feelings are going to be tested, and then it's going to really make the step towards mixing and losing oneself, losing the personality for the first time. Here in Libra, it's more of a diplomat. It's more of a mediator, more of a someone that's you know, giving a handout and saying, let's have a relationship, but it's still not realized that relationship. It will do later. And
I think that maybe it's because I follow the sidereal zodiac that's true definitely of the sidereal Libran, and sort of that happens in the Libran phase sort of thing for me looking at it in the sidereal sense. So maybe it sort of differs in that way, but essentially we're talking about the same thing, but just from a different angle.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
one thing, it still stays the same, and this sort of need to equalize or find a midpoint or whatever. Still the same process, I think, but yeah, it just comes from a slightly different angle, I think.
Yes, I guess.
It's going into those dimensions that you would attribute to Scorpio, maybe, or Pisces, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess the differences become more pronounced when we clash the sidereal with tropical, because the tropical is just concentrating so much on the process of one sign towards the other as a wheel, as a cycle, as a circle. And it's not that much about, we have a bunch of stars located somewhere in the heavens, which are called Libra, Scorpio, whatever. It's about what we see from the earth during the year.
This is like not just a bunch of stars. It is they are the constellations in the zodiac that I'm talking about. They are on the ecliptic. That's why we call them the zodiac. It's just it's just that they're not tied to the seasons in the same way that they were 2,000 years ago, which is what you follow.
I have a question about it.
Okay. I really don't want to. Maybe we can make a different.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that, like, you brought that point up. I'm trying to say that essentially we are talking about the same thing. I think it's just from different angles. But I'll keep quiet about that from now on anyway. But
no, you don't need to. I'm just trying to understand what really is the claim, or not the claim, but what is it that sidereal says about Libra, which I think I missed that.
Well, in the system that I follow and from my own research, they do have different rulerships, slightly different. They have some of the same, but some of the rulerships change because with the precession of the equinox as well, you know, we're still in the age of Pisces, because Pisces is a pretty big sign in the actual zodiac. So like the sort of some of the qualities of the signs have changed in the sidereal sense as well. So like Virgo would be more a cardinal sign as the sidereal Virgo, but not the tropical. So they take on some of the same similar qualities, but they are just like, it's sort of edged forward a different way. It's sort of a different angle of looking at things, really.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anyway, but that's for another time, like you say. It's just
so just to conclude this, make sure I understood. So what is the rulership then? It's Neptune. Is it Neptune that's the rulership of Venus?
Of Libra, it would be Venus,
Libra, yeah.
Venus, Neptune, and Pallas Athena.
Yes, well, that's very much
some of the signs have three, but this is the astronomical zodiac, and it's just how things sort of pan out that way. It's sort of like, say with Virgo, you've got like the Venus rulership, which would have taken the place of the sign Libra on the, you know, it just, that's how it sort of works out, kind of thing. But it still works that way if you do it whichever zodiac you choose seems to work. It's just you coming at it from a different angle, so you're kind of divining from that perspective. But all the perspectives are true. It's just that you're looking at it in a different way, the same thing in a different way, I think.
It is such an exercise
So
of
there
Libra.
isn't really there's no argument there in a sense. It's just whatever you choose, I think.
Yes, I mean, isn't it funny, Paula, how what we are just discussing now is so Libran in its essence.
Yeah, I was just thinking
like
that.
To, without even planning it, we're starting to compare the zodiacs and systems, and
it's so true. It's brought that aspect of Libra out in me as well. That for this, it's just, that's the law of attraction, isn't it?
And isn't it obvious how rational this whole thing is, how airy it is as an exercise, because we're trying to compare. So speaking about rulerships, this is theory. This is some sort of really more scientific, let's say, or more theoretical astrology that somebody may say, does it matter at the end of the day? It's we're looking for a psychological essence, or we're looking for something else. If we get too bogged down into trying to establish which rulership really it is, then how is this then translating into using astrology in everyday life? But yeah, we are on Libra wavelengths today, so we have to do this. We have to speak about it. Yeah, anyway. And Libra speaks too much, and that's why I speak so much. And sometimes you need to stop me, and you need to tell me to shut up, because that's one of the problems with the shadow of Libra when you have it in your South Node.
I have a transition about that then.
What was that again?
I have a transition about that. If you see, if say Libra speak too much, one of the things I repeat regularly, and I get cross against people sometimes, and I say, look, when you gather around the table to eat, if you gather to eat together, nobody takes the dish, puts half of the dish in their own plate, and then let others have whatever they can have, and the last one has nothing. You know, we have manners when we eat together. Usually you pass the dish, you take just your share, and you pay attention. And then I say, so we should do exactly the same with the time of talking and the time of listening. And because people don't do that, sometimes I say, okay, but I don't want to eat with you again, and I go my own separate way, and I let people with their bad manners speak and play at the first to speak, and the one who speaks the louder and the strong and in the strongest way is the one that is going to be listened by the others. And I say, no, I don't want that, so I go.
Well, this is a little extreme, because you have to appreciate that when there are lots of people, not everybody is born with the same innate Libran balancing feeling of how to, be it eat a meal or have a conversation. Eating a meal is easier to sort out, easier to organize. But when we have to have a conversation, it's, you know, we all have different temperaments. Something or somebody needs to organize the whole thing, because otherwise it gets very chaotic.
Yeah, I'm not talking for here.
In general.
But for example, in where I live, that's more. It happens that my sister has started renting rooms in her house, so I find myself living in a kind of little community, and last year there was my sister, my nephew, my nephew's girlfriend, another tenant who was a friend, me. We were regularly 5 or 6 around the table and eating together. And literally, I stopped eating with them for that
There's
reason.
a lot of side noise. I'm
Yes,
sorry
I
to
was wondering.
interrupt.
I'm
Where
sorry.
is that coming from?
I think it's from you, Jean-Marc, because I muted everybody else to try where it may be. You're touching your microphone a bit when you speak.
Is it better like this?
Yes.
Okay, that's the microphone banging against my
It was
zip.
something, yes.
Yeah, now it's good.
I wanted to make a point on it was from the past slide, but it doesn't matter. I'll say the sentence that one thing I want to really emphasize about the Libras I know, they do have a need for their own independence. And that where it said that need, no, you were just on it, where that's so true to me. The one before that you had up there said need for independence. That's the one that stuck out the most. That in order to interact with others, they need to have the independence first, and then it is in that way that they interact. And I also want to comment on Jean-Marc. I love your apps, that metaphor of when you get the community sitting around the table and how, you know, the food that gets passed. And I used to always think, oh yeah, that person, she always takes the largest piece.
Yeah.
And the other, and you know, I used to always try to take the smallest piece. You know, it's just interesting to watch this ability to share. But I think that's very good about the idea of the independence first, and then how, because in order to be independent, you've got to have a very active mind figuring things out too for yourself before you interact with others.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you need to have been through the journey from Aries to Virgo. You need to be a strong personality yourself, and then you have something to exchange. That's the essence of Venus, isn't it? Venus love is not just receiving and just having fun or just having a good time thanks to what other people do for us and we're able to attract or do, but it's exchange of real personality towards, you know, another real personality. This food thing, do you remember from Howard Sportus? He's got in one of his books a story he's telling. He went to a seminar for astrology, and they were giving some food out. The lecturer was giving some very delicious chocolate cakes or something like that. They were amazing, and he said at the end of the lecture to all the participants, now you can come to the table and you can pick up something, you can get what you want. And then he was talking about how the different Venus signs, or I think it was, all the participants, how they were behaving, whether one person went and straight away and got something, the other one was shy and waited until the end, and how the Libra one, it was, I just remember this, the Libra one went and started offering everybody from the table that's not theirs, like, and saying, oh, but would you like to try this, or would you like to try that, in the hope that they are picking up something will not be noticed, and they would appear like they cared for everybody else before they did something for themselves. It was very funny, very funny. Yeah, something of this sort.
Yeah, I can see that.
My father, the Libra, in the Jewish religion, we do this thing with the Sabbath for Friday night. And so he'd buy one big candy bar, and he would so carefully take that one candy bar and cut it carefully so everyone could have one piece of the candy bar. And then all of us would do the debate of who can go first and who got like a little crumb more. And I don't know, I think that of the whole Libra, trying to be fair, but you never quite can be fair.
Yes, and it's obsessed very often with fairness and what is fair, what is not fair. This can be one of the drawbacks. I have been thinking more about the bad side of the dark side of Libra, because I need to overcome the dark side of Libra, and it's one of those things that you are trying to when you're in a situation when something out there you perceive as unjust or unfair, you become too angry about it. You become a real Aries warrior about it at that moment. And usually it's exaggerated. You feel like you have to put it back to balance, and everybody else is supposed to have that feeling of balance and to allow it to happen. And you go into these, battles against it that sometimes are not very reasonable, actually, I've discovered. What do you think? I never mentioned you, never asked you how much Libra you've got in your charts. I know some of you how much you got, but any one of the new people today that has a lot of Libra going on? Do you want to share something with us?
I have a lot of Libra in my chart. I have my Sun, Mercury, and Venus in Libra in the seventh house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was very interesting to just listen to everyone what they have to say, because the seventh house is essentially the shadow. So I'm still working on finding out and really working on the Libra archetype, because it is to be the most prominent in my chart, but I also have a very strong Capricornian energy and Pisces. So it was very interesting when you were discussing Pisces and Libra, because I'm going through my Saturnian return, and it's opening a lot of gates, and it's a very interesting point where I'm discovering more about Libra, to put it this way, because for this part of my life, I was more, I would say, my moon, because it's I have a Leo moon, and also Leo is a very strong archetype in my chart. So now I'm discovering the Libran qualities more and more. So I don't know, everything makes sense. For me, the one thing that really comes up more and more is the fairness point that you just made. Being fair, Libra always trying to be fair, and sometimes it's to an obsessive point where Libra thinks they're absolutely right and they're absolutely fair with what is happening, what is going on. How you also mentioned that for the food division, sometimes for me, I would think that it's very fair that everyone gets the same portion, but the reality is a little bit more subjective than this. Let's say the father should get a bigger portion. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yes, absolutely, you are.
But because we are discussing it in a group of people, but everyone is different, and I think this is where my passion side comes in and says, yeah, but think about everyone. It's a different personality, and your sense of fairness is also coming from a very subjective point. So you should not be so strong and strong-headed on your perception of fairness. This is maybe one thing with Libra, but also I think this is very mixed up with Leo archetype, because also Leo, he wants to be very fair in Capricorn. So it's very difficult for me at this point of my life to differentiate completely my Libran archetype and put it in a box. Okay, this is only my Libra. So it was very interesting for me to hear from all of you, because to a certain extent it's more objective, because me as the Libran type, I mix it with all the rest of the archetypes. But when we were talking about what is fair, what is not, that's definitely something in Libra that it's also to do with harmony. It mixes with the harmony point that we made earlier, because also harmony and fairness, they have correlation, of course. So thank you. It was very interesting to hear from all of you, from all different
Thank you also, Marina, for what you shared with us about your chart. Seems like all those energies are very complementary. Yours, the Capricorn, also actually. Funny enough, even though it squares Libra, and now that you have your Saturn return in Capricorn, it's supposed to square all your Libra planets, or some of them at least. I don't know exactly, but it's also interesting how these squaring signs are very similar. And somebody mentioned earlier how Libra, so Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, is exalted in Libra, which gives us a hint how the two are there is a tendency of Libra to start a journey of cooperation, of working together, of being in a society that eventually Capricorn will build at the end as a completed system. So they're very related with the discipline, with many things. But your Leo moon is different from the whole pack of things. The Pisces is connected to Venus, as Paula said. Neptune and Venus are really connected. I mean, there is no question about that. And it's interesting maybe to discuss how Venus can be like a higher Neptune of Venus could be Neptune, a different way of looking at relationships and love and transcending that feeling and so on. But that's a completely different story. What else? I want to go back to this justice and injustice thing that you stressed. I was thinking lately, with all these Libran qualities and tendencies, that I did too much overdose sometimes. For many years, I was preparing the same quantity of meal for myself and my partner. It's like two people, and it's always divided in half. But recently, I thought exactly what you said. But wait a minute, there is something not that proportionate here, and we started having it differently. I have like 1/3 or a little bit more than 1/3, and he's got 2/3 because he's a bigger person, isn't it? It's somebody much bigger than me. So that's the other way of looking into what's fair and what's not fair, as you said. That's a very interesting point. But I think Libra is doesn't tend to be very how can I say, fanatical about its feeling of what's fair and what not, because it's still not Sagittarius, if that makes sense. But with Libra, it's a dedication of finding out. So that's why it's always asking questions, always wanting to adjust itself to the other side, trying to guess what the other person may want or society may want from it, and delivering it. And it's not very sure that it's delivering the right thing. What do you think?
Yeah, that's definitely what you just said. Sometimes I think with Libran, if I'm not mixing the other archetypes, we can think that we know what is best for the other person. Kind of like, like, I know this is better for you. Coming from Virgo, because you've analyzed everything, you've put everything apart, then you pulled it back together, and you think you know what is good for the other person, and kind of trying to impose this on the other person in a way, especially in a relationship, because all my 3 Libra planets are in the 7th house. So especially in a relationship, this can be a bit stressful for the other person. And when you have the Capricornian energy to add, but yes, Libra, I think this was one of the first points you brought about, that they're trying to see all the different points, sometimes even coming up with alternatives and totally different, maybe coming from totally different perspectives, that at the end it will be totally different from where they started. I don't know if it's making sense.
Yes.
And it's same with it's the same with when they think about what is best with the other person. They'll come up with 10 different scenarios to trying to choose the best for the other person, and sometimes it's not even. This communication bit is missing, I think, in Libra. What you said, they're trying to learn to communicate. It's one-on-one communication for sure, so it's much easier to communicate when it's one-on-one, not in a group setting. It's the Aquarius energy, but definitely sometimes Libra can impose what they think is best on the other person, especially in a relationship. I need to emphasize that is when we're talking about a relationship, maybe business relationship or a romantic relationship in this sense.
Yes, you reminded me that I also recently read Liz Green saying how Libra, she thinks, is the only one that really cares about what the other person thinks and what the other person wants in that particular moment. It's like the best energy to adjust to another person, and it overdoes it so much that it also develops a guilt complex that it may be pretending that it likes everybody and is willing to participate in everything as long as, you know, that would give harmony and balance with the other side. Well, actually, it doesn't always do, and nobody always does. But Libra almost feels like it needs to. It needs to prove that it does, and that gives it a bit of a hypocritical inner feeling. I don't know if that is making sense, but I feel that. I don't know if you do, Marina, because you've got so much, you know, of that energy. Maybe you have more than me in that energy. And do you sometimes feel like you are kind of trying to please so much that at some point you are getting tired of it and you want to say, well, maybe I don't agree with all this all the time, but I'm too scared to admit it? Or is there something like this?
Yeah, certainly. And I think if I have to take out again the Libra archetype, because I'm Pisces ascendant, so I'm also I need to serve as an ascendant in Pisces. But if I have to take out the Libra, I would put it in a more social context where Libra archetype wants to come across as someone really polite, really nice, and someone who everyone likes. So yes, they would maybe say things or keep it keep the whole relationship with the person on a very shallow level where they do not go in depth, so that they avoid coming across as someone who's negative.
Oh yes, that's why they are shying away from emotionalism. That's one of the signs that actually doesn't like, a little bit similar to Aquarius. It doesn't like displays of emotion, like more scorpionic or Cancer or whatever, because it's already not rational. It's already not something logical which can make sense and can be structured and formulated, but it already puts Libra into a foreign territory where it can make a fool of itself. It can make, you know, somebody funny or not polite, as you said, or somehow betray the ideal. So if we become too emotional from Libra's perspective, we may betray the ideal of harmony and of beauty that we're trying to, you know, keep to all the time. So maybe that's where all those manners are coming from, and mannerisms, and, you know, sometimes overplaying it and being looking even superficial, because it's not really the feeling that comes from inside, but it's the facade that Libra is trying to build. Yeah.
I was going to say that I've been thinking while people have been talking that one of the objectives of the Libra can be that they want it to be equal because they don't want any fighting. They want everyone in the group to feel equally taken care of, so that even though it's not going by need or desire, I'm going back to the food idea, or the candy bar, whatever, that part was to create that sense that a calmness, that was the real thing. They want everybody to not fight about stuff, and they want to feel that they came up with a way that from the outside, from the standard of the outside mind, is equal.
Yeah.
So equal can be more peaceful.
Absolutely. Peaceful is such a key word, isn't it? And it's motivating so much the Libra that other people sometimes don't realize how much it's motivating it. You know how you go out with someone, if you're the Libra, the first priority in your head is for the other person to be in a good mood at that moment, to be happy with the whole experience, because that guarantees the most of your good, good time. So your good time depends on them having a good time, because if they don't have a good time for some reason, whatever, then the whole situation is disturbed. The harmony is disturbed, and you feel like you need to fix it somehow. That's creating tension and so on. So if you go on a restaurant, for example, we have this conversation all the time. We go out, and I've got the question, what do you want? I'm being asked, where do you want to go? What do you want to order? Or any sort of decision. And Liz Green is saying, don't be putting Libra on the spot to make those, it's not fair to them, kind of thing, because they suffer from that. They want you to make the decision, because for them that guarantees the quality of time they're going to spend. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so not
Absolutely.
typical for others. I mean, for many others, you know, usually people are motivated by their own desire. And then you've got your desire, the other person's desire, and you try to, you know, find the middle ground. And you try to satisfy what you have an idea that you want from the experience. And not always it's got to do with the other person. But for Libra, it's got so much, it's got the world to do with the other person. So that's so difficult to grasp, I have found, by others.
It's so weird on the topic of fairness. You know, I have my sun conjunct Venus.
Oh, so have I.
And that too in Sagittarius. So I'm always very aware of, you know, am I being too dogmatic? I always know in our personal like case, I always know that I come from a right place, that I am right, because I give a lot of thought into something, and I take the decision only when I know something is right. So I come from a very sure place usually. So I'm always aware that, am I being too dogmatic? Am I like, so I'm always asking my husband, you know, I'm always telling you this is the right thing, this is the right thing. Is it too annoying at times? And, you know, it's so funny. He said the other day, it would be annoying if you were not right almost 100% time. You were not right 10 out of 10 times. It would be annoying. But yes, I try to, because my Venus is conjunct my sun, even though I know I know in my mind, I know I'm right, I try to get that fairness aspect. Am I being
try to be wrong a bit.
Yeah, for change.
It's not gonna work.
Do you know, I have to say, I too have the Sun conjunct Venus very, very close. And there's so much you've spoken about today, and I absolutely relate to it. And I'm always trying to think too deep into everything, delve and, you know, oh, am I doing the right thing? Am I thinking, you know, there's too many aspects to everything. I can't stick to the point because I consider too many things. And I also try to consider people very much. That might be something to do with Pluto in the 7th house, which again is the Venus house. So, you know, there's a big emphasis, I feel, on my chart to do with relating and the Venus principle sort of thing.
Oh my God, I have Pluto in Libra too.
Oh no, my Pluto's in Leo.
Oh, okay.
In the 7th house.
The 7th house, yeah. Well, Jacqueline, you actually raised something which I was just about to say about the 7th house. We never spoke about the 7th house. And do you have a lot of things going on in the 7th in general, regardless of...
No, I've only got, well, I say only, I have Pluto in the 7th house, which is, you know, quite a heavy planet to be in the 7th house. So yeah, no, that's all I've got in there. But I can say at my age and through the lifetime of relationships have been very focused in my life. Again, with the Sun Venus, and also apart from relationships and whatnot, it's very much onto always trying to do your best to look as good as you can, into sort of all sorts of cosmetic things. It really interests me. All of the you know, hairdressing, all of that sort of thing, all the beauty side of things. I love it.
The love of form again, isn't it? A form.
Yeah,
harmony.
I can't make any decisions. Don't give me a decision. Do not give me any decisions, because I think of every angle to whatever the question is. I will think of it from A to Z, and I just in the end I get to a point and I think, oh, I can't cope with it. I can't think of it anymore, and you know, I eventually have to make a decision, but it's not like a lot of people that can easily decide what they want to do or where they're going or whatever. Not for me.
You take a coin.
Yes.
You throw it.
Good idea.
Oh, I love the coin. I love the coin. It saves so much time, and also the dice.
I see what you're saying.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different things I could do next.
Yeah.
And when I can't make up my mind, I just follow exactly whatever number the dice says, and I get that thing done. And my life just keeps going very nicely with that.
Fine, maybe I'll try that next time.
But okay, but with the coin, do you know what happens with the coin? It's not just that it makes the decision for you. It's very fun. It's very interesting. I had this as an exercise for balancing Aries Libra and getting more Aries and not that much Libra. When you flip the coin, at the moment when it's in the air and falling down, before it has fallen down, you see, if you watch yourself, you would sense what you were wishing for. You were wishing for one of the two at that moment. And that's
how I bought this house. Just exact. My daughter gave me that advice. Mom, just flip the coin, and just that moment before, you're going to know what you really want.
Exactly.
You'll know which side you really want it to fall on.
That's really bringing out the Aries. So Aries, if we think of Aries as the internal intuition, that's already there somehow magically from somewhere, of what we are and who we are and what we want without an explanation. The fiery intuition of what I am about. So the coin is great, isn't it? As a way to watch our Libra tendencies and get them. Not because we make the coin make the decision, we just blindly follow whatever it gave us because we now gave up hesitating, but it's really bringing from ourselves our decision, which is there, even though we have a lot of Libra. And the seventh house, I just want to very quickly mention that even if you don't have a single Libra thing in your, Libra is not represented as energy in the zodiac, but the seventh house is, then I personally believe that could be more bringing you into relationships and all sorts of topics and themes that we talked about today than the other way around. So the presence of planets on the seventh house, so I consider the greatest Libran factor in my personal chart the fact that my moon is exactly on the descendant, rather than for example the south node in Libra or the Mars in Libra or the prenatal new moon. It's this moon on the seventh house which motivates so much in the Libran sort of things. And compromise is something we didn't mention. I know we can't cover everything, but too much compromise and things like this, how this can play a bad role. But because we have a little bit more time, and I just noticed on the chat box, sorry for the delay about this, but I just wasn't looking, when you were giving us some sort of signal that you got something there for us. Would you like to share it? Is there time? How long is it? It's probably not too long, so you can go for it.
Yeah, I mean, if it would take up a good part of the next hour.
Of the next hour? Okay.
Would that be too long?
You have been playing quite a lot. You also have the South Node in Libra.
Yeah. And
I
Venus
wanted to say before we begin, I noticed Paula had her hand up to ask or say something very often, and I feel like she hasn't had a chance to jump in.
Paula.
I've jumped in a bit actually, but yeah, I did have my hand up. Thanks, Laura. It was just to say that one of the words that hasn't really been mentioned a lot with Libra is love. And I don't mean just personal relationships, but also in a spiritual sense, in the actual intrinsic meaning of the word. I think that Librans genuinely really care about other people, because they understand love, I think, on a different level perhaps than a lot of the other signs do. And they can embody it. They actually are indecisive because they do care so much about other people as well. That it is about love. And I think that word hasn't been mentioned enough with Libra, but it's really crucial to the sign.
We kind of try to escape from it. It's actually, how usually when we say Libra and out there and all sorts of websites, textbooks, whatever, that's the first thing mentioned. And so many misconceptions come about Libra because usually when we say love, we imagine more some sort of a watery connection, watery feeling of connection. Maybe Neptune comes in here, but it's usually more difficult to explain to people how Libra is not love in that particular sense. But you're right that it is actually love in the other. Really caring.
I think that's what it is essentially. They do care a lot about other people, not just because they don't want to make a decision, but because they actually really do care so much.
It's
Yes,
so
I think so
interesting
too.
that it is supposed to be the goddess of love, Venus, and yet Libra is the sign where you think love is the most personal thing, and yet Libra is the sign where you're starting to disassociate with the personal and going more into society and more into collective. It's like a paradox, isn't it? You think love should be more personal.
I really noticed that. I'm glad you said that, Paula, because for me, the Libra people I know, they take into consideration other people. I mean, and that's the, I think of they care about because they're actually including the other people in their thought processes.
Yes.
They're certainly initiating that as a cardinal sign. You know how the other 3 cardinal signs is pretty easy for us to see what they are initiating. Here, Libra is supposed to be a leader also in something. And that something is this, I see it as the invitation to all the others around it to participate in exchange. So it looks like from the outside that it's caring about them, that it's all about them, but it's actually it's giving an example. All the cardinal signs are giving example of how to do something new. So this something new here is how to reach out to another person and to cooperate. But it's all contractual, isn't it? It's all about a contract. Let's sign the contract. Marriage is a contract for Libra. It's not about love that much. It's more about equal sharing and equal participation in something that is supposed to then produce an effect. So the 2 people come together so that maybe they have children, or they become part of society, or they're stronger together rather than apart. So it's not, I would argue, it's not that much about real sensual or emotional love. It's more about pragmatic cooperation with Libra. And yes, fair enough. It's wanting to not hurt anybody, or not, to be fair to everybody, give a chance. But this is because it also wants to be given the same on the other side. And if it's not given the same, it becomes very angry about it. If it's not able to engage your attention, or if it's not able to, have the same thing on the other side that's triggering, then it may become a very Aryan, expression as well. Do you think so? Do you agree on that?
Yeah, I think that looking at it from a mechanistic point of view in the strategy of the sign, I think that's very true. But I think underlying it, there is a greater signature of the need to be loved and to love other people and to love humanity. Just love in all its forms, really. I think that is channeled through the sign in that need to balance and, have equality and yeah, I mean, I suppose that might sound a little bit Aquarian too, but I think that is essentially a Libran quality as well. I mean, if you look at some of the famous, even tropical Librans, they have this quality of wanting to embody or present a picture of universal love, as well as, or spiritual as well as personal,
Oh yes, I see.
But
What
it has no bounds. It just they're faced with this dilemma of how to manifest and balance this in their lives and personal contracts and things. I think when you're talking about contracts, I think that is society's conditions rather than a Libran condition of love. Like you get married in a church, or you do this, that, and the other. I don't think that's what really the sign is about. I think that it's put into that place by society, but it doesn't necessarily have to. You don't have to conform, and Libra doesn't have to conform to those.
Usually, it likes to conform.
So maybe, yeah, but I'm saying that is the way. That is society's conditions, really, rather than what the sign is necessarily about.
That's what it's interested in. Liz Green is saying that this is the most ritualistic sign, Libra. These are her words, that Libra is the sign of ritual, the one that likes the whole ritualistic feeling of marriage, of all sorts of ceremonies, of all sorts of displays of how we do things in a process, in a way of mimicking even the condition of what society wants from us, and that it really enjoys that process. And yeah, there is a desire for something more, but that something more happens, I think, in Scorpio in the next stage. Libra is just sensing that it wants to get there, but it's preparing the ground. Anyway, yeah, it's.
But I think that that's true as well. But I think with because I follow the sidereal, well, Libra actually covers the 8th house, and not the 7th, and Virgo covers the 7th house. So they sort of interact and sort of go into each other's sort of areas that way. But yeah, it's yeah,
They all blend together, isn't it?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, there's a definite overlap. Yeah.
Also, I wish to say that, especially in our group, that we don't need to relate a sign to an individual because, for example, in my chart, I have Saturn and Neptune conjunct in Libra. And so it forms a very, very strong, they're just 2 degrees apart. So I have that feeling. So I'm not just an Aries sun or, you know, and because we are astrologers, we see that in a way we have to isolate Libra as a quality rather than always attribute it to a whole person who is so complex with all the signs.
Absolutely. Nobody's just a Libra or anything.
Yeah, I know. I know we all know that, but sometimes we tend to say things that make it more like that. And for my own self, I would be interested. I don't want to interfere with Dwayne's thing, but I would love a comment or two about having a Saturn and a Neptune conjunct in Libra and how that would manifest. That would be interesting to hear someone's comment on that.
Oh, we can do this now because then when we give the word to, I think when you're making a presentation, isn't it? You're still going to show us slides as well. So before we do that, we can go through the rest of the things, and then we still have time. So.
Hello, everyone. I would like to share something really quick.
Yes, Beatrice, great to have you again.
Yes.
You are a very pronounced Libra. We looked at your chart 2 weeks back. If anyone wants to come back to this discussion, you can see. But yeah, you wanted to share a quote, didn't you?
Yes, very shortly. It was very nice to see everyone's friendly faces today. It is in the afternoon over here. I'm in the States, and so this is nice. But I have a quote. So I read this book daily. It's called Meditations for Women Who Do Too Much, and it's written by Ann Wilson Schaaf. And today's September 24th title is called Balance. So very interesting and right on time with what we are talking about with Libra, with balance. And the quote is from Coco Chanel. I don't know if she's a Libra or not. It says, "There is a time for work and a time for love that leaves no other time." Then it goes into a quick short, I guess this is from Anne's, the author's, her interpretation of that quote. It says, well, at least Coco Chanel recognized that one has to do something besides work. How many of us have ruled out love and living from our lives and seen them as expendable? Even if we are married, we act as if love is a luxury that we can ill afford. Our disease of doing too much has isolated us more and more from ourselves and others. Just as nature needs balance, people need balance. We need time to be whole persons, and this means balance. We are constantly being drained, therefore we need to be fed, and we need time to digest the nourishment. Work and love are better than just work alone, and there is more. Then there's a small quote in boldface. It says, a human being is multi-dimensional. A human doting may be more like a drawn line than a faceted gem. So as I read this daily, and today's September 24th, and we're talking about Libra, I wanted to share that with everyone because everything that you guys have been talking about, I can definitely relate as a Libra with all energies, especially with food, with my moon being in Taurus. Yeah, I want to share with food sometimes with everyone first before feeding myself. I don't know, I just try to share my love with others. So I wanted to share that with everyone, but I'm definitely interested in what you're thinking about, Dwayne. I don't know what that is.
Is that you?
Glass of water, anyway.
That's nice. technology is so fun. But does anyone have anything, or did they resonate with that quote? And to me, that just resonated with me as we're talking about balance. And today's topic is about Libra. So in the universe, I'm big on the universe always talking to you.
Synchronicity, yeah, that was great.
By the way, Coco Chanel has only one planet on an angle, and that's the descendant. Mars on the descendant in Gemini she's got. So that makes
MC and Libra.
with it. And Libra is her MC.
Yeah.
Last degree of Libra.
Very interesting. Thank you for that.
Okay, well, yeah, that's very to the point, isn't it? And also, if you guys have ideas about what Lauren asked about, Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Libra, but that's a little bit, Lauren, taken outside of the context of your chart. And if they see the charts, even though I don't want to, like, I don't know how far we are going to go with this, but it's so interesting, this combination you've got in the context of your chart. It's really crucial there because it's opposite Venus, isn't it? Do I remember well?
It's yes, it is Neptune and Saturn with a close conjunction in Libra, and then it is opposite a close conjunction of Mars and Venus in Taurus.
So that's a lot of Venusian topics going on here. It's not just, and one is in the second house, the other one is in the 8th house, correct? So here we've got...
well, actually, in my way of doing it, Neptune becomes in the 8th house and Saturn goes into the 9th house. For the Mars and Venus, they're both in the 3rd house but in Taurus. So that has that second house feeling.
Mm-hmm. So what would the question be in relation to your conjunction? What kind of question do you have in mind?
What would the flavor be of taking the Libra and isolating it? What would be the flavor of having a conjunct Neptune and Saturn in Libra? That was the question.
I would say don't do that. My personal opinion. Because yeah, you can learn probably something about the energy itself and in very, very generally. But really when it comes to life is when it's in the context of the chart. Everybody born in the same year as you probably has that conjunction because Saturn and Neptune are generational planets. But when we look at your chart and see how this conjunction is playing out with not just with your other planets as a link to them and what it's activating, but also when you had your progressed moons and we looked at the chart, remember how crucial that turned out to be for what happened in your life. It's most important that it's in the 8th house or in the 9th house, wherever you want to call, count it to be. That translated more as a flavor of something. But Libra is not going to...
at that point, it's the funnel of the Yod of God. The finger of God is right there on it.
Yes.
So yes, it is more complicated, but I always like to take things apart before I put them together. Yeah, so I don't mind dissecting it and getting that before I figure out a whole complex. And I feel that's what I think is great, is to isolate things and a detail before we put them back together.
Yeah, okay. I was mention just one more thing before I give you guys the words, because I think one way to look at this conjunction, which is very outside of the chart, is which for me is very interesting, is what sort of generation you were born in. This Libra was there in the background, in Neptune and in Saturn together. So your whole kind of generation was dealing with some issues at that moment, and you were infected by those Libran issues. Neptune in Libra is extremely interesting for me. My mother has it as well, and it's a bit of a social tendency of glamorizing relationships and idealizing relationships and marriage and expecting from it something that maybe next generations and the ones before those with Neptune in Libra weren't really viewing in the same way. And this is coloring your own chart and your own life, your own tendency, because whatever then that touches there is having the social tendency part of it. And a lot of Libra was in the air in terms of fashion, in terms of style, in terms of, you know, what we admire. So we admired, you admired in that generation, when Neptune was in Libra, things that were Libran, very specifically Libran. And at the same time, for that short period of 2.5 years of Saturn in Libra, at the same time that you were born, there was also maybe the first signs of trouble, and how this Libran energy actually is not always positive or needs to be worked on, and the sort of, you know, difficulties that it can bring as well. So I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but that's my.
And if I were to say something very vague, I would say those two together are opposite in the sense that Neptune is the large picture and very expansive, coupled with the Saturn, which is the contracting and disciplined. And so you have to, when you're pulling things into a balance, you have to balance those two tendencies to expand and and contract and be disciplined. That's sort of a very simplistic detail.
So one is grounding you, the other one is expanding you. Yeah.
The idea, the picture I have in Sabian symbol style for this would be a lock, you know, on a canal.
Ah, aha, that's a very good one.
Interesting.
Yeah. You've got the water, you've got the structure, and there is one side higher and the other side lower, and then you have to open a sluice. How do you pronounce that? A sluice?
Yes, like I lived in Basel, Switzerland, so I lived on the Rhine, so I often saw that.
Yeah, you see, and there is a balance between the two sides.
That's great. I love that.
So,
I wonder also if it could be like balancing rules and freedoms with in your personal relationships as well, because it's connected to Venus and Mars, and how you relate to the, you know, how that sort of, well, I don't know, it's not expansive maybe is the word. I don't know what the word is for Neptune, but the boundless aspect of Neptune with the boundaries of Saturn, it's sort of like trying to balance those aspects in your relationship, like where to put down the boundaries and when to transcend them, kind of thing. I don't know if that has any bearing.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know.
So it could be also having illusions and having good sense at the same time. So having, I don't know.
Because these are the things, when you look at someone's chart, you wanna understand how they interact, but you have to understand what is the quality you're interacting with.
But it's more about the planets. It's not that much about the sign Libra here, because if the conjunction was again in Libra, but other planets were involved, then we're talking about something completely different. Here, the question is a little bit difficult to answer because the planets happen to be societal planets. They're not personal planets. So we can't really see the essence of the energy as a temperament for you as a person, because you don't necessarily would have a Libran temperament because your Neptune and Saturn are in Libra. This may be more external factors in your life than inner ones, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's the way I would read it. It's just because, like, the moon is doing something in everybody's chart. It's doing feeling function. It has a function. Neptune has another function, but that function is a bit more abstract. And you are doing the Neptune function in a Libra style. That's the way I see it. But you're not the only one doing that Libra function at that moment. You're just one of the sea of Neptune. Yeah, something like this. So it's
But I think that the connection with Venus especially does make it personal.
Exactly. So that's why we need to see the chart.
Those dynamics then become personal in your life in some way.
And the Venus-Mars conjunction is 1 degree apart. I mean, that's they're very conjunct.
So we won't know that. If we don't see the chart, we won't know how important.
Okay. But okay, thank you.
I have a question about Libra too. Radilina, can you pull my chart?
Okay, I just didn't want to, all right, we can do that if that's gonna help. I just need some time to find it. I was just a little anxious about the time because I also...
Yeah, it's 7.
It's getting late and Dwayne has a presentation. That's
yeah, the thing. Shinji, why don't you? Because I'm really going to get lose a lot of time trying to open the chart as I don't have it ready. But would you like to ask your question quickly? We'll try to, answer it quickly.
Oh no, it's okay. I'll cover it in Q&A session. Let's go ahead.
Oh yes, yes, I completely forgot about that. We need to do another one. Maybe not next week, but the week after.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Hold it. If it's not something that you think we can quickly give you some insight.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I tell you a Libra joke. It's very short.
All right.
Maybe you tell me if you know it. It's a couple. They are going to the restaurant. They order trouts, and the dish comes, and they are served. But there is a dish between them, and there are 2 trouts, and one is big and the other is small. And so they're starting making manners, and so help yourself, and no, help yourself, and so help yourself. And eventually one of them, who is an Aries, takes the big trout. And the other one, who is a Libra, says, oh, how rude. And the Aries says, why, how rude? And the Libra says, if I was you, I would have taken the small trout. And the other one says, well, you have it.
You see? So Aries may be more considerate.
Yeah.
Maybe knows better what the outcome will be. Anyway.
Yeah, at the end.
He knows how to win as well.
I love that you have, I'm going to start thinking about food as ways to explain things.
Yeah, you can.
It's good.
So almost like Venus is pulling us in the other direction of Taurus today, a little bit. It doesn't want us to remain in Libra. Okay, well, I'm sure Dwayne's presentation is going to be quite exciting. So we move on to it.
Yes, I will mute.
Are you sure? Because it's 30 panels long.
I don't know how long it is. You haven't sent it to me before, so it's up to you, Dwayne. But it's still 7 o'clock, so we've got another half an hour by schedule, and we can extend it a bit more if you want, if you guys want. But
Dwayne, your presentations are always worthwhile. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Let's go for it.
2-minute break though. Just 2-minute break for a cup of tea first.
Yes, why don't we make
2 minutes?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I want to be there, but I just need a cup of tea.
I suggest we make a quick break for everyone, 5 minutes, and then we come back and we can give all our attention to the presentation. We can, and if anyone wants to go, you can go. But I'm not going anywhere, so
okay.
I look forward to it.
Okay.
5 minutes break, everyone.
Okay.
Great.
See you soon. Yes, and everyone is almost here, I think. When you can prepare and you can share the screen if you want, and just make sure everything is ready whenever you want.
Okay.
After all the scattered thoughts we were running through, now you're going to give us something more structured,
yes,
I guess.
I love that notion of bringing scattered elements into cohesive patterns of order and beauty. Hopefully that's what I've done.
Very Libran.
What's that? Yeah.
Very Libran of yours.
Right. And for those who don't know me, I'm definitely of a Rudgerian nature. Rudger's been my mentor over the years regarding astrology. And I've delved not only into his astrology, but his philosophy. And I see how the two work together in the long run. So some of what I have to share here dips definitely into his philosophical base, and which takes us out beyond conventional astrology into, I'm trying to get back, into alchemy. And once again, I can't seem to get rid of or change the panel on the right-hand side.
No problem. Take your time.
So we're back. If you would, Radlina, we'll work together.
Yes.
As we've done.
Would you like me to read that? Or?
Yes, please. Thank you.
The goal of astrology is the alchemy of personality. It is to transform chaos into cosmos, collective human nature into individual and creative personality. That was the quote by Rudyard.
So alchemy. The two traditionally have kind of run together, you know. There's a lot of astrological symbolism is used within alchemy. And I've always found it very interesting that the sun and the moon take up a balanced orientation in all the presentations of it that I've come across. And there are hundreds and hundreds of images from alchemical lore that have this polarity, the sun-moon polarity, and Mercury also plays a big part in that symbology. But it's, there are, as I say, literally hundreds of images available on the internet. It's quite a prominent feature. So what is alchemy? And Radlina, please.
The language of chemistry employed by the alchemists is a metaphor for the inner work, the opus, of psychic transformation. The transmutation of base metals into gold is the transmutation of psychophysical elements within man from an impure, obstructed state to a fine state of responsiveness to high-frequency energy. And that's from Ralph Meltzner, Maps of Consciousness.
And that's a book that came out in 1970 and was closely associated with my first encounter with Rudyard. So I really started to see alchemy, astrology, the I Ching, and so on as maps of consciousness. Now, some of you have maybe come across Nikki Michaels' website. Nikki was the organizer of the last two birthdays celebrated around Rudyard. And I was at both of them. We were in San Francisco. And she was the coordinator. And she's also a part of the Rudyard Institute for Transpersonal Activity, which was the group that pulled it all together. Well, her own website very much points to this alchemical dimension of Rudyard's work with the image that she has here prominently. That's definitely an alchemical image on the left. And she's, as Rudyard was, calling us to go beyond sun signs because you are so much more than just your sun sign. So for a lot of people coming into astrology, you know, new to astrology, I think this is really a powerful reference point, you know, her approach. She hosts the Rudyard audio archives on her website as well. If you've never listened to him in person, it's really quite lovely, his French accent and so on.
Right, so I read that. All right, so we've got the quote here. Is that the quote from Nikki Michaels?
Yes.
She says, Dane Rudyard is arguably the seminal astrological innovator of the 20th century. His many contributions have been so thoroughly integrated into astrological thought that his concepts are often used by others with no awareness of or attribution to their source. No one's ideas are more often used and less often understood than Rudyard's. While his writings are vast and necessitates time and study to comprehend, Rudyard's most significant contributions to 20th century astrology are at the core simple and elegant. They are based upon the common human experience of and relationship to the cycles of nature and the understanding that time itself is cyclic and marked by periodic celestial events such as the monthly lunation cycle as expressed in the face mandala diagram above.
Thank you. This is the title of this painting is Evolution Mandala. And I believe the quote will resonate with the image.
Okay. Would you like me to also read it, or shall we wait for it to appear first?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and start.
Okay. The phases of the moon are symbols of the basic steps.
Right? I'm sorry. I don't know why that happened.
No problem.
The phases of the moon.
It's not on the screen yet.
It's coming.
Yes, here it
So
comes.
the phases of the moon are symbols of the basic steps in the cyclic process of distribution by the moon force of the solar power received by the moon when conjunct the sun, new moon. They are not really expressions of changes in the moon itself, but of changes in the relationship between the sun and the moon. They are phases in the solid-lunar relationship, phases in the activities of bipolar life. All that belongs to the field of life on Earth is affected by these phases. And this field covers an infinite variety of activities, spreading from the biological realm to the psychological, from instincts to those psychological drives which are mostly compulsive and which, when frustrated, degenerate into complexes and the like.
So this is now going into his philosophical works. This is one of his foundation works, The Planetarization of Consciousness, where, as we'll see, he really points to the cycle. And Rudyard was really instrumental in bringing the understanding of cyclic knowledge into the 20th century,
Yes.
20th century astrology. So,
shall I continue?
If you would, please.
The concept of the cycle is at least potentially the most inclusive of all symbols, because it constitutes a frame of reference for all symbols. It enables us to situate and to give a structural meaning to any and all symbols. It answers perhaps to the most profound need of the human mind, the need to harmonize, within an intelligible pattern of order and significance, ideas and beliefs, modes of feeling and behaving, which though radically different, must all be granted an objective and historical geographical value. This can be done convincingly only if each point of view or way of life is seen on the background of a whole cycle of existence, and each one is understood as a function of the particular phase of the cycle which it characterizes. As cycles with different starting points and of different lengths constantly interact and overlap, it follows that a great variety of values can be embodied and proclaimed in contrasting societies and cultures during the same period of time, as is particularly the case today. The values differ simply because each of these societies is at a different phase of its evolutionary cycle and therefore has different needs. Moreover, each society fulfills a different function within the whole of humanity. If we are able to understand what these different phases and functions are, we can accept the conflicting values as eminently worthwhile, at least for the people whose existence they guide or rule. And we can do this not merely in a spirit of perhaps hypocritical tolerance, but with deep and respectful understanding. From such a spirit of understanding, new techniques of intergroup and intercultural harmonization can emerge, which would be more sound and stable than are our modern procedures of communication, discussion, and conciliation, usually based merely on some half-hearted compromise. Humanity crucially needs such new techniques, as it moves, willingly or not, toward a state of highly complex planetary integration. All people need the capacity to structurally grasp the place of their own cultures and value systems within the cyclic framework of the planet-wide process of evolution of the all-encompassing mind of man. And they can do so only if they cease thinking of symbols born out of particular needs of a particular phase of the cycle as absolute truths.
Thank you. So I emphasize this quote from such, and I can't see that, if you would read that, please.
Can I, from my side? Oh, I'm sorry, Dwayne, I misunderstood. I thought you wanted to go back to the previous. So yes,
Oh, no.
Yeah, this one
No,
said...
I'm pulling that quote out and featuring it here because Rudyard is always calling us to these innovative seed group kind of formations, which in large extent, this astrology group that we are participating in it's a seed group and very much in alignment with the harmonization and so on, that particular value.
Paula was just saying that she was there at 87 when that happens.
Oh, right on.
Harmonic convergence.
And that was the year you were born, right?
And that's the year I was born, yes.
Right.
after August, so I wasn't even born yet. Yes, interesting. So yeah, the quote you wanted to have here is, from such a spirit of understanding, new techniques of intergroup and intercultural harmonization can emerge. It was so much about coming together, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And Arguelles, for those who don't know, this is Jose Arguelles, was a very good friend of Rudyard's. And they hooked up in, I think it was 1970. And at one point, Rudyard saw Jose as his successor and kind of offered that to him. But Jose was already in alignment with a Buddhist, a Tibetan Buddhist teacher, and declined. However, their friendship remained right up to the very end, and until Rudyard died. And Jose, according to Rudyard, was an exemplar. He was an avatar. He really saw him as someone bringing in the new values. Jose is an Aquarian sun, and he definitely has did produce a huge body of work that is totally futuristic and very, very Aquarian. So he was an exemplar, and harmonic convergence was an event that he convened worldwide based on his study of the Mayan sacred calendar. And just to go back, in this large format booklet produced in 1971. Rudyard and Arguelles both showed up in here. And this was my introduction to the myth of the feathered serpent, which was behind the whole of the harmonic convergence event. So from 1971 until 1986, Arguelles was carrying that vision and disseminating it. And so finally on August of 16th, 1987, it all came together. And this was a major, unprecedented worldwide convergence at sacred sites all over the world.
At sunrise on August the 16th, 1987, in an unprecedented moment of human unity and bonding with the earth, hundreds of thousands of people at sacred sites all over the world acted in concert to create a global ceremony that created a matrix of intention I refer to as the dream of harmonic convergence. A new morphogenetic field was created that day as millions more people were touched by extensive media coverage of the event. Behind this tremendous outpouring of human aspiration towards wholeness was the prophetic return of feathered serpents, mythic Mesoamerican god of civilization created in peace, harmony, and attunement to cosmic order.
Thank you. So I won't ask you to read through all of these. Just give a sense of the enormity of the event and the fact that people were at sacred sites all over the world, like bringing those sites back into the collective consciousness, activating them. You know, it really was a tremendous feeling at the time. I was the Calgary area coordinator, and this was a photo from that morning. I guided people out west of Calgary onto the Stoney Indian Reserve, and we had a magnificent ceremony there. Also took it into the center of the city of Calgary, to the newly opened Olympic Plaza at high noon. And that brought that whole vibration into the heart of Calgary.
Is there a reason why the 16th of August was chosen as the date, though?
Yeah. It was generated out of Jose's knowledge of the Mayan calendar. So I can't remember specifically what the reference was, but that is, it was definitely timed according to that.
Right. Okay. So this one here says, as the Calgary, Alberta, Canada coordinator for harmonic convergence, I networked the event far and wide. An unexpected offshoot of this process was that I received an invitation from Buddhist friend Dominique Gabriel, what's the last name, Dwayne?
Mazo.
Yes, to participate in a 12-day meditation retreat in Ojai, California, with, how is it pronounced exactly?
Ojai.
Ojai, okay, Ojai, California, with Zen Master, again, maybe you know the name better.
Nat Han.
Okay, and 80 other artists. The gathering ran from May the 1st, 12th, 1987, and was titled Engaging American Buddhism.
So I just, thank you. I wanted to point out that in 1987, we had this supernova appear in the sky. So in terms of heaven above, that is an actual image from that time. In my networking of the event, I gathered folks in my home once a week, and we gathered around in a circle, a meditation circle. So in a very real sense, we were resonating with this phenomenal event in the sky. And it was really an amazing period of time. So I think I can read that. I was the only Canadian in attendance at the retreat, and for the whole duration of the 12 days, the medicine ball I had been using in a group meditation circle back home was the only object allowed to remain at the center of the circular meditation yurt. We all gathered in 2 to 3 times a day. So it was a focal point for the duration of the retreat. And for me, it was about the lunation cycle. Over the course of the 12-day Ojai retreat, opportunities arose for people to facilitate activities that engaged other meditators. I stepped up and facilitated a lunation birthday ritual where each person sat in a circle, not arbitrarily, but rather according to their astrologically assigned lunation birthday, thus adding a whole new level to their meditative social encounters with other participants. And the way this came together, I mean, we were a group of 80 artists, so you can imagine the creative ferment in a community that was in mindfulness practice day after day after day. It was really intense. And I put out my idea and I got great response. So imagine yourself coming into a small, well, a yurt, which is already circular, and you've got a circular mandala in the center of the floor. There are 8 huge spires of long grass of some kind positioned at each of the 8 points of the star of the mandala. And one by one, people come in and are assigned their seat, their meditation cushion around the circle according to their lunation birthday, which I had calculated prior to their arrival. So it was very formalized, and it brought the whole lunation cycle into a whole other dimension for me. It was like, it really, I saw the possibility for people gathering in that way, but here it was coming into form, and it was really a satisfying encounter for everybody that was there. We covered all sectors, and we shared. It was really very, very rich. And it's something I encourage anybody in this group to give it a try. It's really an awesome encounter. And Redlina, if you would, please.
Yes. In the process of determining each participant's lunation birthday, I realized that although Thi Nhat Hanh was not present at the ceremony, I'm sorry, I just don't know how to.
Yeah.
Okay, so although he was not present at the ceremony, he and I shared the same lunation birthday. We were both born in the waxing crescent quadrant, just 5 days after a new moon.
Thank you. So that was really special for me. Just it boosted. I was already feeling completely aligned with this teacher. It was new to me. I hadn't even known about him before the invitation came, and to find such a resonance, it was really added a whole other level to my experience. So Thich Nhat Hanh, sun in Libra, Dane Rudyard, sun in Aries. My whole experience at Ojai, I found, these 2 teachers convening in my mind. They both had very similar messages, is what I'm feeling, and that's where I've gone in this last week's research. So there's gonna be quotes from Rudyard and then from Thich Nhat Hanh, and give you a sense of the alignment that they have here.
The first one from Rudyard is, the man who can think of himself and feel himself as a functioning existential unit in the vast body of the earth, in which all men live, move, and have their being, this man can come to vividly experience his relationship with this planetary whole in a supersocial, indeed a spiritual sense.
And now Thich Nhat Hanh.
You carry Mother Earth within you. She is not outside of you. Mother Earth is not just your environment. In that insight of inner being, it is
Interbeing.
Interbeing, yes. It is possible to have real communication with the earth, which is the highest form of prayer. In that kind of relationship, you have enough love, strength, and awakening in order to change your life.
Thank you. So both teachers calling us to an awareness of the whole earth. The whole earth is central. When you think about your lunation birthday, the only reason you have a lunation birthday is that you're viewing the relationship between the sun and the moon from the earth. So it's calling us into that earth-centered awareness. It's so vital. To be is to interbe. You cannot just be by yourself alone. You have to interbe with every other thing. So this is a phrase or a term that that Thich Nhat Hanh really brought into the modern vocabulary. And he was just prior, or I guess just prior to the Vietnam War, which is where he lived, he had been abstracting from traditional Mahayana Buddhism some of the basic tenets and rewording them for the modern era. And out of that came this notion of interbeing. And he actually established a lineage based on the teachings of interbeing. And his book, Interbeing, was one of the foundation works. He's been very productive as a writer. I think he's got over 60 books, and just an amazing person. We won't go through all these, but these are, this is typically his approach is to break down these different qualities of being into trainings, so that if you went, for example, to Plum Village, which is in France, which is he established when he had been exiled from Vietnam, you would go there and you would engage in these kinds of training. So there's more information at the link below there if you want to explore that further. You know, this is a major spiritual teaching coming from a Libran sun exemplar. A few of his books, I've only read the top three, and they've been very, very, very powerful. The Miracle of Mindfulness is really exceptional. Attachment to views is the greatest impediment to the spiritual path. I think that's important for us to keep in mind as we incorporate our own brand of astrology. You know, keep it open-ended. Radlina, please.
Conflict is inevitable the moment human beings who face opposite paths of action or belief give to their choice an absolute sense. If they affirm that what they see as the truth or the right is absolutely and forever true and right, no individual need take such an attitude.
So just to share, that's my chart. I got a Venus angular in the 7th house. I had a really wonderful moment with Thich Nhat Hanh I used to go out early in the morning for a mindful walk through the Ojai lands there. And one day I encountered him doing the very same thing. And as we came together on the path, and this was actually unprecedented, I embraced him with a great big hug. And it kind of took him by surprise, I think. But it was really a wonderful moment. And I really felt the harmony in that. It has persisted. And there was almost a transmission of quality of being in that moment. And,
could you just explain what you mean there by, on that last one, by angular?
On the descendant, Lauren.
Descendant. It's another word for descendant?
Mm-hmm. The descendant being one of the angles of the
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It seems that planets on angles are emphasized in the person. Yeah. And then just to end on a Venusian note, a Mayan Venusian note, the hieroglyph Lamat from the Mayan sacred calendar that's Solking is definitely related to Venus, and also associated words like star harmony, love, the octave principle. And this is a photo of my partner Teresa and I co-creating a painting of Lamat, or representing Lamat. So meditation in action, Venus in action. She has she's a Sagittarius sun, but several planets in Venus or in Libra. So, and that would be it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Very, very Libran presentation and very spiritual as well. I felt it.
That was beautiful.
Great. Well, you know, I go out of every session I've attended here, and we pick a topic for the next week. It's just I'm on fire about that particular concept, and I go into research mode. And this is kind of the way I research, and I tend to now gather pieces together and weave a story together. And it's almost like, you know, I was thinking about it this week. It's like the Uranus factor. Now, because I've created a lifestyle that puts me in a place of readiness to receive that Uranian energy, when it hits, I just go to work. I just get on with it. And I can kind of count on it coming. You know, it's just, I don't know exactly when, but it comes. And this, as I say, this group, being a participant with you, Redlina, especially as our coordinator, it's just been so fulfilling to engage and to be able to, within a week, you know, share. Where I live out in the boonies, that's not a big opportunity, but through your leadership and facilitating this this encounter, this group encounter, it's just very wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you. This makes me very happy. The Libra in me is very happy right now to hear that other people are resonating and finding value in what we do and enjoying it and everything. So, and just to tell you that lately I started receiving quite a lot of messages from people that just watch our discussions online, and they don't come to it, they don't participate, but they watch the recordings. Not a lot, because I don't want to make any sort of campaign to spread the word of what we're doing, because I want to deliberately allow people that just see it online. On the one time I post it on Facebook every week in various groups, and then I just leave it there, because I kind of trust that people that maybe in some sort of Libran magical synchronicity principle, I don't know how to call it, would pop here and find something for themselves, or not, or just see that it's not something that they're interested in, but still get away with something. And that can bring us together in a more natural way, I feel. And I can see that it's working, not just because we share with you, for example, Dwayne, we share so much common Libran energy. We can see how strong you've got this Venus in the 7th house on the descendant and many other things going on. So yeah, it's really making me happy, all this. And I thank you for all the work you do.
I like the intimacy of the group. I like that it's not too big, that I see repeated members. I mean, those that get it are wanting to be here if they can.
Yeah, and at the same time, we're so welcoming to new people.
Yes, I mean, that's too. It's expanding, but it's nice to be able to get to know people more I don't know. I like that.
Me too. It's a very cozy group, isn't it?
It's cozy. Cozy.
And I hope we can continue as much as we can. I'll do my best to be here every week and to, you know, speak about it, whatever we decide to speak about. It's always very enriching for me, what you guys share. And I look forward to next week. What did we decide to do next week?
The rulers.
The rulers,
yeah.
What,
okay.
just a discussion about the planetary rulers. I mean, that's what was talked about as and since we have different ideas, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to maybe do something a little organized? So rather than we can easily get lost in this topic, I feel. So I suggest I would do this. I would prepare my view of things as quickly as possible as the beginning, you know, and then I'll leave it to you to maybe do the same. Like, how about Paula, would you like to present the rulerships from the sidereal point of view and just say, okay, this is how it is in this system?
Okay. Yeah,
we can take it or leave it, but it's just
very much an individualized perspective, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Me either.
Yeah,
And
so that
I would like to know, you know, like when I've been told, okay, the ruler of my chart is Uranus as an Aquarian ascendant. That would be something I'd like to spend time to think about.
Oh, that's something different, isn't it? That concept of the ruler of the chart is something different from rulerships in general. Yeah, but yeah, we can maybe then argue.
Why is it so different to have the ruler of your ascendant? Why is that different?
No, it's just two different. It's just two different topics altogether. Like the ruler of the chart is always the sign that's ruling the, you know, the planet that's ruling the sign on the ascendant. This is like the rule there. It's just because we use the same word, ruler. Yeah, now that may be confusing things a little bit. But when we say rulership in astrology,
that would be so interesting.
This is to do with what planet is related to what sign. Yeah. And then we can have an argument there. Well, in your case, Lauren, we can have an argument because we can say it's Uranus, but some people may say it's Saturn. So
yeah, so I am interested in, you know, if I love when we I love when we personalize it and people give examples rather than everything all theoretical and stuff like that. So if I were to put out, it would be interesting for people to just briefly talk about the ruler of their chart and how they feel that it has manifested in their life. Not long, just a few sentences.
Yes, that's a very good idea. I just need to know from before next week who wants to do that so that I have your chart ready and we don't lose time. Okay, Lauren? Dwayne? Yes, Marina?
I don't mind.
Jacqueline? Okay?
Yeah, I'm quite happy, yeah.
Ginger? Perfect. So I'll get all the cards ready.
I'll have to send you mine though, Rodolina, because mine will be different.
Just send it to me, Paula. Send me the one that you have for yourself. Yeah, and I'll show that.
I just find that the times we've done that, it becomes even more intimate and more
Yes.
meaningful.
Yes, today was very theoretical. We didn't know where it's going to take us, but some days are like this, you see. Some other discussions have been a lot more personal and interactive. But we can mix things here
I think
next week.
you do it your way of covering all the rulers of the planets, and then we have a time where each person just talks about the supposed ruler of theirs and how it manifested. It's going to be a nice balance.
Absolutely. Yes, good idea. Thank you, Lauren. We'll do that definitely. So I will see how many charts, but we will just go on after the other, and we'll do mostly that next time. And that would be a great way to see. So, for example, with you, if you have Aquarius on the ascendant, then we can use that as an example. So we can discuss: is it Saturn? Is it Uranus? And you can say what you see more reflected in your life. So, yeah. That would be better than just theorizing it all the time.
That's what I like. I love the personal.
Okay, deal.
Okay.
Great. All right, I look forward to next week. Join again as usual. I'll try with the recording by the weekend for today. Just a little slower when I'm in London, but keep with me. And please share also. I mean, I know we're not trying to make any publicity out of what we're doing here, but still, if you find that somebody around you may be interested, or I mean, go ahead and share. So we at least make sure that what we produce here this is, I think, workshop after workshop, weeks, 25th week today, and this may be valuable for some students that want to watch this and listen. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Radalina, for organizing everything. It's really so useful, so valuable.
Thank you so much.
And synchronistic, like I find that same thing, like Dwayne said, I find the synchronicity keeps happening each week. Yeah. Since I do so many charts or whatever, then I'm somehow applying something new I learned from our group.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a Libra.
My brain open, like not making it too fixed to the way I think it should be, but to keep opening up to how it is. And I love that Gaurav is part of this. I love that. Yay for him being here and giving us his perspective when he does.
And you're keeping up with us, speaking about a completely different system for hours and hours. And you're so patient, following up with us.
What a patient man.
Yes.
You must have some Libra there in the chart going on, Gaurav. I'm constantly trying to trick Gaurav into sharing his chart with us, but he never succumbs.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. No.
Well, according to the sidereal chart, my ascendant is Libra.
Your?
Yes.
What is in Libra?
My ascendant is Libra.
Ascendant. Yes. Yeah. I think you do look like an ascendant in Libra.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Well, I could show you. I could share a picture from my earlier years, and then you can see that how actually Libra works. But I'll need the screen share to share that image of mine from about a decade earlier.
You must have been a child a decade earlier.
No, I how can that be? I'm now in my early 40s.
Oh.
That was part of the Libra
screen share, Radalina. Let him share his screen.
I have let him. I mean, you can share your screen, Gaurav. There is nothing.
Okay. I have to get this off. Just give me 1 sec.
Why is he going to share his chart?
I'm still on audio.
He's not going to share his chart.
No.
He doesn't want to share his chart. No.
Oh, he doesn't, does he?
Audio. I'm still on audio. Just give me 1 moment.
Try with the other
I need,
profile, yeah.
I'm still trying to find out that image. Just one moment, please.
You must be one of the privileged ones
yes.
with Libra ascendant, yeah?
Yes, you can say that.
Which ascendant is more Venus to you? Taurus or Libra? Wow, Gaurav is looking for the image. I just thought about it.
Sorry, what did you say?
What's your
I was
question?
wondering, which ascendant do you think is more Venusian? Taurus or Libra?
Taurus.
Thank you. You voted for me. No, that was meant to be just a joke.
But it's funny. See, look how fast I give an answer. That's the Aries part of me.
That's the Aries, yeah. Of course you are prejudiced because you've got Venus in Taurus.
Of course she is. Yeah.
I wasn't thinking of myself at that moment.
No, it comes subconsciously with Arians. They think of themselves when they don't think of themselves.
I see. Well, I'm in good company because I'm with Roger.
Oh yes. Who can compare with you in that respect?
There you go. So I have somebody in my court.
Yeah. Every time somebody attacks you, say, "Well, I'm in the same party as Rudyard. Be careful." What to do.
Because we do get, people see us as so aggressive, and I've never been aggressive. But yes, I am an initiator, and yes, I am a pioneer, but I'm not aggressive.
Can I share what I think that Aries is more honest and natural archetype than Libra? I think Libra is the more aggressive. I mean, that's my conclusion, which is not saying a lot. Very good.
Oh, blimey.
Oh my God. Is that you?
That was me. Yeah,
no, that's
that
not you,
was me a
Gaurav.
decade back.
Excellent.
Were you a model, Gaurav?
No, not really.
All right.
But you could have been.
Could have been. Oh my God.
Extremely handsome.
Yeah.
That's the power of Libra.
Libra ascendant.
Yeah.
We should have started with that image.
That's very good.
So, since Venus has two sides to it, one is materialistic and another is absolute depth of the spiritual realm. Why? Okay. If you observe Venus among all the planets, it is the only one revolving in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm. On its own orbit. You mean on its own orbit?
Yes. Sorry, rotating on its own orbit in opposite direction among all the rest of the planets, which gives it a very specific property in itself. I mean, getting down from astronomy to astrology. And then I won't touch the mythological aspect of it because, I mean, if I go in, I mean, even apart from the mythological aspect of it, we look at a Libra. I mean, I can connect it in 100 different ways. One easiest way is that the Libra is the symbol of weighing scales, and now the weighing scales are two in portion. One having the weight, another having the thing which is being weighed. So basically, it shows you two different contrasts of life, like a black and white contrast of life. So one contrast, and I mean, you can connect it 1,000 ways. We know sun rises from the ascendant, sets at the descendant in Libra, and the darker half of the zodiac starts onwards from Libra. So again, Libra is the point where there is contrasting energy of light and darkness, and Libra in itself is it is a point where you can see different shades of sun. going down. It is a different, it has all the different shades when the sun is going down. So it adds to the versatility of the versatility to the personality of a human being. Because the energies of sun with the different shades and the different harmonies, they kind of bind within the zodiac itself, giving the giving a Libran person a personality which can be of various shades in itself. So, I mean, there are hundreds of ways you can connect it like that.
Like the chameleon quality of Libra that is so talked about.
I wouldn't say chameleon property is more associated to reptilians, which is reflected more in the Scorpio zodiac sign rather than Libra. Because from the Scorpio, we have evolved to the Libra. The sun has already moved from the Scorpio here. If we take it in how the sun moves to the high noon to your that you call the 10th house, and eventually moving to the 7th, and then going to the IC. First, the sun rises in the ascendant, then moves to the MC, then comes down to this descendant, and then goes to the IC. That is how the sun is moving across the chart, right? A stationary chart, a stationary zodiac. If we look at a stationary zodiac, so it has already passed Scorpio, the energy of Scorpio. And when we connect to the energies of Scorpio and Virgo, I mean, on one side, we have an earthy sign. On another side, we have a watery sign. Now, air is a medium which combines water with earth, which combines earth with water, water from the sky to the earth, and water from the earth to the sky. That is, air is the basic medium that is taking. Now, what is important here is the balance. Now, why are we talking all everything in accordance to the balance of Libra is because of that harmony of air. If there is lack of air, it makes the earth a desert. If there is too much, on the contrary, there is an uncontrollable wind, it can turn the water into storm, the clouds into storm, which can create havoc, which can create floods. So it is the balancing energy between the both. On one side, we have death, the end of longevity from Scorpio, the 8,000. On the other side, we have reasons of or the journey towards journey towards death. That is the 6th house, either from accidents or from illnesses. That is the two parts of life, that how life ends. So these two houses are very much, kind of, you have to go beyond. If one goes beyond these, then they reach the trines of the chart, the trinal houses, which is the 5th and the 9th. So the balancing act is very much, harmonized. I mean, I can go on and on, so I won't drag it. We already had a too long session today.
Well, thank you so much, still, Gaurav. We can see this from so many different angles. We can see that we can talk until forever about it.
But that in the picture was me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I will believe you with a little bit of reservation. I'll need some more pictures for proof. You need to show us something in between, like how you transformed over the years, like a time frame transformation. No, I'm kidding. It's a very, very beautiful picture. Why did you have to take that picture? Was it for some sort of event or show or magazine or something?
No, that was I just got myself, I was very much into physical activities and working out. So I thought, why not get myself pictured for memory,
to record the moments of being
you can say that.
Shape.
Yeah. So I had a lot of phases. And even talking about the Libran, I have earlier in my life, I have worked as a consultant fashion designer for ethnic wear, and I have worked as a fashion photographer as well, which are very much associated to the Venusian properties of beauty.
Yes.
So
we never mentioned all those professions that are so typical for Libra.
That was like, what, 16, 18 years ago? Way back long. So quite a journey. but yes, astrology was something which was very continuous from the very beginning. I don't know, what, 24, 25 years now?
Mm-hmm. Well,
Again,
you
I
are a
mean,
teacher essentially, and
yes,
yeah, right. You're mostly teaching, and we also didn't speak about Libran quality of teaching because of this one-to-one relationship that it easily establishes and adaptation to others. It makes one of the best teachers, I believe, when you have to transfer to other people, as you really care, as Paula said earlier. I think.
yes, of course, because see, it is the ascendant and the descendant we are talking about. When we are talking about Libra, we are talking about the ascendant. The balance, when we are talking about the balance, again, it is the balance is for who? The ascendant. Because it is the journey of the ascendant till the descendant to understand from the external towards the internal, from the material to the spiritual, from the bottom, from the earthy realm to the higher realm. So it is, you know, it's like a journey of the soul, the sun, which starts, the sunrise starts from the ascendant, sets in the descendant, but again rises back from the darkness in the ascendant. It's a complete cycle. So it's not a halfway thing. The journey is a complete way. So even in life,
I'm sorry, I thought you had finished, but I was going to ask, is your son on the descendant?
my son.
Your son is on the descendant. I'm pretty sure about it.
Let's not get into the details of my chart, but
Okay.
you
No, I
didn't.
figured this because you shared it. I'm not trying to. You said you were an Aries in the tropical zodiac, or maybe Taurus,
Yes.
Aries Taurus. So I just figured if you have Libra ascendant, Aries Taurus
I
must be
have
on
a
the other
Libra
side.
ascendant and a Aries sun.
Yeah, so I mean, this is just a good example, Gaurav. I mean, we're not deciphering your chart by any means by knowing this, but this is such a good example of being interested to work with other people, to share knowledge, to communicate, to be a bridge. It's a good example for me how the seventh house and the descendant work even more powerfully than any Libran, I don't know, Libra, something in Libra. Yeah. Both Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud had their sons in the seventh house, by the way. I don't know if you know that.
You said Sigmund Freud.
Yeah, I think both Freud and Jung had son in the seventh house.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I suggest we stop now so we can get some rest and
Thank you.
have some dinner, some of us.
Or breakfast.
Well, it's not very, yes, it doesn't live up to the Libran ideal very much, but we have to eat as well, so.
Excellent conversations and presentations by Radilina and Dwayne. Loved
Thank
it.
you so much, Shinja.
Thank you.
I didn't
Bye
make
all.
any presentation today, but Dwayne, thank you so much for all the time you spent and everybody else for being with us. And see you next week.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.